the first few seconds are always like, I'm just gonna wait, you know? Because if you start talking and you're in the middle of talking, then you don't really get to,
Yeah,
like, people are entering in the middle of a conversation. But, anyways, hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. You?
Good. You know what I was thinking before I started? I was like, there's a few people in my life that I don't keep in touch with regularly, but when I do get in touch with them, it's like no time has passed. And you're one of those people. And what I'm trying to say is, I appreciate you, motherfucker. Thank you.
I absolutely love that. Yeah, I was actually thinking about that when you hit me up about this and everything. I was like, dang, like every time we talk, it's like no time has passed and
Yeah.
we just kind of just abandon the conversation, but we come right back to it. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's
And it's always
perfect.
long stretches of time, too, like
Yeah, yeah, like 6 months,
to a year.
year. Yeah, it's crazy stuff,
Like
crazy
anyone
stuff.
who I'm talking to regularly now is probably going to be like, who the hell is this guy?
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
what? Eric's electrons.
Yeah. So tell me what's
Yeah.
been going on. I actually didn't think to turn your volume up, so I apologize. That's going to look
Oh,
really.
it's all good. It's all good. Yeah, I hope my mic gains are good because I don't know how to work this mic yet. I'm a noob at all this, but yeah, everything's been going good. Just been doing school,
Hmm.
work, and the like, and dealing with everything academia has to bring and all the drama that surrounds that. So
Yeah, so
yeah,
tell me about
just
that. What are you dealing? What kinds of things are you dealing with?
well, I've been interning and like one I did like a black hole categorization internship where we basically mapped out a database for all the black holes like in our side of the galaxy.
Hmm.
And that was pretty cool just to, get some experience. But the things dealing around that, like when I go to these workshops, when I go to these these events, like science events, like it's heavily politicized.
Hmm.
So you'll see like the table of like uh promoting socialism, or you'll see the people like promoting the whole diversity efforts and all that other stuff, and it's
Yeah.
just my gosh, like here we go again. I thought we were going to talk about like black holes and mathematics or something, but no, we're talking about diversity
The
and
wrong kind of diversity. Universities are
yeah,
supposed to be like, that is the place where it's supposed to be diversity of ideas. And that's the only
exactly.
diversity that matters. Who gives a shit about your skin color or whatever other stupid identity thing that you think is important? It's fucking ridiculous, man.
It is ridiculous. And what's even more ridiculous is the fact that these people, just because they have PhDs or they're getting their master's degree or whatever the case may be, they think
Hmm.
they know about all the fields that surround like these topics. So, for
Hmm.
instance, there might be a PhD in physics or mathematics, but they know nothing about economics, like
Yeah.
nothing. They know nothing when it comes to supply and demand. They know nothing about trade offs. They don't know anything about that. Yet they make all of these policies and these organizations based off like their misunderstanding of economics.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, as you know, they do stuff like the wage gap thing, talking about the wage gap, but they don't further explain it and all that stuff. So it's just very frustrating
Aren't
to
you
see.
tired of this SJW shit? Like, it's just
Yeah,
so
yeah,
boring now. It's boring to talk about, it's boring to hear about because it's been around us for so long. And I'm like, hey, I'm a grown up. I don't, why am I hearing about this shit? Like,
yeah, yeah. Like I'm supposed to be way past this or whatever. But
yeah.
I don't know. When you think about in history, like there's always been like the SJW somewhere in some type of way.
It's
I
always in the
mean,
liberal arts side of academia.
yeah, exactly, exactly. I mean, there was always something. I mean, we could go back to the 60s and the 50s, when it came to race and stuff. We could go
Hmm.
back to even before that when it came to I don't know, Jewish people or women or whatnot. But I mean, there was always like some type of SJW movement that was like against new ideas or people coming out like saying something different, you
Yeah.
know. And have you ever read the book Intellectuals in Society by Thomas Sowell?
No, I haven't. You know what? I have
Oh
a
well,
few books by him that I actually do need to read.
yeah, you do, because he talks about a lot of this stuff, and I
Mm-hmm.
mean, he's talked about it for like decades now, and
Yeah.
he goes in history and talks about like how different intellectuals like influence society
Mm-hmm.
in not in direct ways sometimes, because you
Mm-hmm.
know not everyone knows who intellectuals are, but their effects, because you know intellectuals know politicians, intellectuals know like powerful people,
Yeah, yeah.
and their effects have trickled down to the common person, and that's the
Mm-hmm.
reason why we see so much SJW stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
So,
do you see a lot doing what you do and stuff?
I do see a lot of it on the internet, but I don't address it. It's not something that I'm interested in. Sometimes I'll talk about it just because I've heard something that I find I need to talk about. It just compels me to talk about it again, but it's a little
Hmm.
bit of a tired subject, and I
Yeah,
like to explore other things more.
yeah. There's so much more interesting things.
Like below all the SJW shit and religion and anything and everything is human behavior, the ways we interact, the things that our interactions tell us about people. Like I like the meta aspect of everything, right? Like to me it's not about the conversation. It's the conversation about the conversation. I want to talk about how that conversation went, how can we have that better? Because I think people suck at that. I think that's something that on the whole we're lacking, and it's such an important skill to have, to be able to be an honest interlocutor and try your very best to remove your emotional and just your emotional baggage from things, because that's what
Yeah,
the identitarian shit is too, right? Like people are so heavily identified with their ideas emotionally. So when people are trying to combat those ideas, they're having an emotional reaction to it and they're failing to intellectualize it. And that's a
exactly.
problem. That's a hindrance to progress. So,
Yeah, yeah. When did you find it a problem when people were having an issue talking about like ideas or having these arguments? Like when did you realize that?
so the internet has this thing called the debate culture. And a lot of these people who have read a lot of stuff on the internet, they think they know a lot and they want to talk about the things they've learned obviously and kind of do their thing, but every time these people argue, they think they're intellectuals, but they're really just trying to work out their emotional turmoil through these ideas, and they're really failing to do that because they're not connecting with the actual depth of the conversation because they're held back by that shit. So you often see on the internet people will go after each other, people will try and have conversations about things, and instead of the information at hand, it's more about who is the dominant person in the conversation, which again comes down to this emotional my dick is
Mhm.
bigger than yours bullshit.
Yeah, pissing contest type thing.
Yeah, and it's just
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
okay, you guys are trying so hard to project this image that you're like an intellectual because you read a few fucking articles on the internet, okay? Like, get the fuck out of here. We all know that we're influenced by a myriad of things, and you have to be
yeah.
aware of that because sometimes even I realize much later, oh shit, I just jumped on a bandwagon because this sounded
Hmm.
like the correct thing to do, you know?
Yeah.
Even I like, and it sometimes it's a time thing, sometimes it's just a you only have so much energy in a day to absorb information and you only have so much space. So
Yeah, yeah. But what you just did, like that takes intellectual honesty. And believe it or not, there are people who are very smart in their field or
mm-hmm,
the small pockets of knowledge that they have. And they're just not able to be intellectually honest to say
mm-hmm,
that I was wrong here, or
yeah,
hey, I've done this. And that's the reason why I reach out to people who are
mm-hmm,
able to say, hey, I'm wrong, or maybe I'm wrong here.
mm-hmm,
Because, you could have a discussion with people like that. You can't have a discussion with someone that's like, you're evil because you disagree with me.
mm-hmm.
It's just not going to work
Yeah,
ever.
there's the block right there. What is the point of even
Mm.
proceeding any further? There's no
Exactly.
point of going
No
any
point.
further.
Yeah.
You've already ended the conversation.
Yeah.
And it's also this thing that I've been thinking about lately a lot too is I think you really do have to have a fairly high degree of emotional intelligence to participate in these kinds of discussions, because you need to be able to be someone, like you said, who is intellectually honest. And what that requires is reconciling your emotions to reality, no matter how hard that is. And that's a process that people fail to do. And you can tell right away when you see them in conversation, they start getting agitated and very uncomfortable right away as soon as they hear an opposing idea or thought that counteracts what they feel about their belief. They start to get emotional reactionary. And that's something that I think requires some skill and some social aptitude to kind of get through. And it's not what
Yeah,
people
and
have.
experience really when you think about it. Because I mean, if you experience that feeling of, oh, maybe I may be wrong, like the more you experience it, the less painful it is to go through that, because it is painful to recognize, like, okay, like I can't believe this idea that I've put so much um, energy behind, that I may be wrong about it, even though I believe it, I believe in it strongly, but maybe I'm wrong, and it's hard for some people to reconcile with that.
Yeah.
And I think the only way to do that is to be honest with yourself and to know that the person that opposes you isn't evil automatically just for disagreeing with you. So yeah, that's always the hard part, because even in scientific discussions, I could talk about something purely scientific. I could talk about quarks or some theory about everything, and when you're talking about it, sometimes they just go into like this other dimension of, either not necessarily you're stupid, but more so like, you know, you're evil, or you don't know this, or you don't know that, and it gets so defensive, and it's just like,
Yeah.
oh gosh, here we go again.
Yeah.
So yeah, but
That's
and
awful. The you're evil shit. You're a bad person because you don't believe like me. I mean, I think
yeah,
there's a large gap that we could have a discussion about to come to an
mhm,
understanding. And I think as I'm getting older too, you realize people have different life experiences. They grow up in different cultures. They grow up around certain types of people. The way
mhm,
people behave is a reflection of their environment over the
exactly.
past, right? So you have to
Hmm.
be understanding of that. And there's also this whole thing of chance, right? Some people just turn out the way they turn out. There's always an element of chance that causes this reaction or that in somebody. And well, they're just like this. Nobody's really at fault per se for turning out how they did.
Yeah,
There's so many factors that are out of our control when it comes to our growth and development, and we are just adapting to those things. They're not adapting to us. A lot of the time though, people want to force the external world to adapt to their sensibilities. Another
mhm,
problem, right? Here's another
yeah,
problem.
and that's the reason why I think you would love Intellectuals in Society by Thomas Sowell.
Okay.
He talks about that. He calls it the vision of the anointed. So
Yeah.
basically, people who feel like that, it's their job to change the world into whatever they want to make it to be. They
Mhm.
have this vision, and they press that vision upon everyone else
Yeah.
by what they would like it to be versus what is.
Mhm.
You're supposed to start from what is, and obviously, there are things that to change or whatnot, but you
Yeah.
have to start from what is. They start from what it should be,
Ought.
and they
Ought.
work their way backwards. So it's not necessarily a scientific way of going about things. It's a backwards way of
Yeah.
going about
So
things.
this is like a philosophical argument. Can you derive an ought from an is? And to me, if you understand the words in that sentence, the easy answer is, of course, you can derive an ought from an is. You should derive all your oughts from ises. How the fuck
Exactly.
is this so hard? You need to have an hour-long conversation about whether we should build our lives and make decisions about factors that are tangible and exist. What a revolutionary idea!
That's never been thought before.
Oh, it's incredible. Like, I just feel like
Yeah,
sometimes I feel like people try to over intellectualize things and they're like, very, oh my
yeah.
God, I'm so smart. Like, Jordan Peterson has this thing that he does where he's so florid and verbose, and he says things that you can say in 3 words in like 7 paragraphs. And then you have the
Yeah.
opposite scale of Jordan Peterson, which is Sam Harris. And he's very concise and succinct. And
Hmm.
he's very good with language. You want a good economy of language. You know what I mean? He's
Yes.
very good
Yes.
at that. He cuts the fat, very direct. And can you believe, like, I know you have communication issues if you have trouble understanding Sam Harris. You may not agree with him, but if you don't understand what he is saying, I really
He's a
question.
very clear and sound guy. Like it's hard to kind of like if you're like most of his opponents, or I would say almost all of them that I've witnessed,
Hmm.
they've implied things that he wasn't implying
Yeah.
and what he was saying. And so they came to the conversation saying that, oh, he's a right winger, he's a white supremacist
A
supporter or
neocon. He's
something.
a
Yeah, neo.
neocon.
Yeah, like what? But yeah, and with the Jordan Peterson thing, I actually just got my taste of like the Jordan Peterson like fandom and how a lot of them try to justify some of the things he said because
Yeah.
he was asked a simple question by I think it was Dennis Prager, like, do you believe in God? And he went into this long rant about like
What do you mean by
how
God?
so what do you mean by God? I'm just I have to just wait.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Wait,
he
I
thinks
need
for
to
like
think. I need to think
uh,
right now.
I need to think of a whole story that I'm gonna tell you and everyone for like 20 minutes. And yeah, and he went into this thing about how there aren't true Christians and about how most people who say they believe in God aren't true believers. But like that wasn't the question. The question was whether you believe in God or not,
Hmm.
and he could have easily answered that in like less than 5 minutes, but you know, he
But he used
he's
the word
him. So
believe, you know what I mean? So
yeah, yeah.
so there has to be this whole woo peddling conversation. Like he's like a Deepak Chopra to me, you know? The thing
Yeah,
is, he
was
is smart and he has some
yeah, yeah.
sensible things to say, but for me, those sensible things are overshadowed by this whole like trying to reconcile science and religion and like
That
then making the claim that without the Judeo-Christian values underpinning society, we would not. I mean, I'm pretty sure.
that's been debunked by so many people in so many different ways. I just like a simple view of history. It shows
Mhm.
that that's just not true.
Yeah.
There are many secular values that contributed to what how we run society today, and it's
Mhm.
not just from Judeo-Christian values. And I don't know. I think that argument is pretty weak.
Do unto others just seems like good advice to me. Why do the Christians have claim on it? Because some fucking dude wrote it in a book one day?
And Confucius wrote that too, and
Yeah.
many other religions had that in their texts too. So I just don't understand why that has to be tied to a god or gods. I mean, I've had that. I've been having that debate on my Instagram with people because we're debating the whole Big Bang thing and then the whole science and religion reconciliation thing. Like
Hmm.
I just don't think that they're I don't think that I think they're mutually exclusive, honestly.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, I think they're mutually exclusive. I mean, one's based on faith, one's based on a method, and you can't. I mean, a lot of people who oppose my views say, "Oh, well, your belief in science or your
Oh
belief in
my
it's like,
god,
no,
I want to talk
yeah,
to you
go
about
ahead.
this. So
Yeah, yeah,
you are in the field of science. You're a physics
hmm
major, right?
yes,
Okay, so I work for somebody who like he's a PhD scientist, and
hmm
he his expertise is in marine biology, and we will often talk about stuff. And there was an article that had come in a magazine about how it's important for us to communicate, like it's important for the scientific community to communicate information and get it to the general public. But
agreed.
what happens is this a lot of the science gets stripped down the lower down the chain it goes, because there's a lot of technical stuff that a lot of people can't understand. And what happens by the time it filters down into the very bottom of the ring is that the information has warped so much that now we've sacrificed accuracy to kind of dumb it down, so to speak,
hmm
right? And I think that I like there is obviously something really important about like say a Neil deGrasse Tyson type that can kind of bridge the gap between those two worlds. But there's also something to be said about how do we get people ahead a little bit so we don't have to dumb things down. They have to kind of push and adapt to being able to understand things, because that the other thing with that is, like you said, people think that science is a subjective enterprise. They don't understand that it's an objective means by which we observe the universe and the world around us, right?
Mm.
They think that, like, eukaryotes, prokaryotes, organelles, the things that we've discovered, DNA, they think that these things are a belief somehow, when we clearly have proof and evidence to show these things. So, how does that problem get solved? And how do you think would be a way to solve it? Because I have no idea, but you're in that field. So, obviously, this is
Mm.
something you're going to have to deal with.
Yeah, so I've been doing this experiment on Instagram. I've been following tons of people from all sides of the political aisle, right, left, center, extreme right, extreme left. Like
Mm-hmm.
I've been trying to bridge the gap there in terms of like understanding where both of them
Mm-hmm.
come when it comes to science. I mean, and they both have their set of kind of anti-scientific beliefs and distrust for scientists. I mean, for instance, the left, like of course, when it comes to gender, they're a little bit off there. When it comes to like talking about IQ, they don't want to talk about that, or
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to talking like many things that they just don't want to talk about it. They want to censor everything, and that's not cool. And then on the right, you have people who don't know anything about climate science, so then they call it a hoax and they call it this or they call it that, and trying to explain it to them sometimes is a little difficult. But because I don't agree with the economics behind it, like the people on the right trust me when it comes to science. And I think that's part of the solution there. Like you have to be knowledgeable when it comes to the economic arguments behind the science stuff, because in the people's mind they're like, okay, these are scientific facts, but what are your solutions? And when we talk about solutions for climate change, for instance, a lot of people on the right say, oh, what, you want a carbon tax? Like they automatically say that before I even say anything, like, oh, you want a carbon tax, and you want this or you want that or that. And I'm just like, no, I actually don't agree with that. And they're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, okay, well, I'm willing to listen now. And it's so strange, but just that alone allows them to listen. So, and what I've noticed, even with Neil deGrasse Tyson and such, like when they come to the table, their automatic response is government,
Mm-hmm.
and the right doesn't like that. And but at the same time, like the right also, they don't come with like solutions on their own. They're just kind of like, okay, it's happening, but there's nothing we can do about it. So let's just not do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a solution. So there's that. And then of course on the left, I deal with people who are like, I don't think that trans people should be able to compete in, like for instance, I don't think that people who are born men should be able to compete
With women.
with women, yeah, and
Duh.
stuff like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some people on the left that think that, but there are some people on the left that are like, no, like they should be able to do whatever they want. It's their freedom, and what else they're going to do. And, they don't feel this or that. And it's just like, again, with sports, it's very hard to, you can't base it on your feelings or what you think it is. You have to base it on biology,
Mm-hmm.
because, I mean, like, for instance, boxing, you let a man or someone who was born a man get into boxing and boxing a woman, he could be the absolute worst man at boxing.
Yeah.
But when it comes to, boxing with women, like he's going to demolish them.
Oh yeah,
Like,
dude, that happened
period.
in MMA. There was a
Really?
trans, there was a, yeah, you didn't hear about this? Joe Rogan got a lot
Mm-mm.
of shit for it because he's talked about this on the Rogan Experience. There was a man who transitioned into a woman and had joined the women's MMA side and was just ragdolling bitches. And he's like, how can you guys not understand that there are physical differences between men and women? Like, look at this woman is still built like a man. Doesn't matter if
Mm-hmm.
you're taking hormones. It's been a man. He's been a man all his life.
All
You
his life,
think
yep.
that a couple of years of hormones are gonna soften him up and not make him as broad? And give me a fucking break, dude.
Exactly. And I've competed in boxing, and I've sparred both men and women. It's just different. Like the power differences,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter if they're the same weight. Like, because, with MMA and boxing, it's all about weight classes. So
Yeah.
they only fight like within their weight classes, but
Mm-hmm.
still, even if they're the same weight, like a man still holds like a physical advantage there.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the science backs it up. And yet there are a lot of people who are usually on the left that are like, no, this isn't fair that, this trans woman or whatever can't perform or
Look
can't
how
compete.
contradictory that is, because in that situation, a woman is going to get hurt. And on what side are the feminists? Aren't they on the left too? They don't want
You would
women to
think
get hurt.
so.
They don't want
You
women
would
to get
think
hurt.
so.
Oh no, but there you go. There's an issue they probably would never even answer to or talk about.
No,
Like,
no,
hey,
no.
are
And
you for women or are you not?
yeah, and now there are women who are competing. Well, there are people who are born men and competing in like track and field and high school and stuff, and they're winning scholarships over people who were born women.
Mm-hmm.
And so these women are getting cheated out of a scholarship because of people's feelings about
Mm-hmm.
this. And that's wrong. So there was a woman recently, like she spoke out about it, and she was getting a whole bunch of stuff about it, but and people were calling her a hater and stuff because the woman she lost to was black. So like people
Oh
jumped on that, like,
no.
oh, she's
Yeah.
being racist and blah blah blah. And it was like, no, like that's a man,
You ever
like
get sick of
and
that shit being a black dude?
oh oh, and science is even worse, yeah, because you get
Uh,
people that come and they're just, oh, there just needs to be more scientists like you, and oh my gosh, there just needs to be more black
why, just
scientists, and I'm
because
like,
you're
why?
black? Just because
Yeah,
you're black? Get the fuck out of here.
yeah. No, I'm
It's
like,
because
no,
you're
I think
smart,
that
dog. Not, and black has nothing to do with that.
exactly, exactly. And I'm just like, no, there needs to be more, like, there needs to be better scientists first and foremost. Like, I don't care if they're men, I don't care if they're women, I don't care what they are. They
Yeah.
just needs to be better scientists. And the fact that I'm black has nothing to do with it, like nothing at all, and they don't understand that. And then when
That's
they,
so racist. It makes me want to give you a hug. I'm so sorry. Like, that's such a
no,
painful problem, dude. I can't imagine having to deal with that.
yeah,
It's fucking frustrating.
it is frustrating. And especially it's frustrating when they come at you like they want to help you, but then
Oh.
once they see your political views, once you have a conversation with them, then you hear about them talking about you behind your back to like different academics. You hear about them starting
Oh.
these little groups. Like, I'm not sure, have you ever heard of what was this group called? It's like a chat thing. Starts with an S, I think. I forgot the name of it, but anyway, like supposedly academics get on it and they chat or whatever.
Mm.
And I was like the main one about the conversation, and they were like, oh, he's fake intellectual, blah 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 blah. And these are the same people that were like, oh, he's black in STEM and blah blah blah,
Oh
must
my
like those type of
god.
people. Yeah, and it's horrible. Like, and these are like the popular science Instagrammers, it's very cliquish. It reminds me actually of what you were talking about with the debate culture thing. Like, it's
Yeah.
just like that. Like with the whole, like, I'm sure you know about this more than me, but like the Andy Worski thing and all that
Uh,
stuff that went down, like that's in science too, and that's why I mostly speak against. I'm gonna speak against it a lot more, but it happens a lot
yeah.
in science too. So that's the unfortunate part. Yeah,
It's really depressing, to be honest with
it
you.
is. It is. Yeah, because you can't even get to the science if you're evil, or you're, because I get
Dude, I
called.
just can't believe people will come up to you and be like, "Oh my god, we need more black scientists in STEM," and then go talk shit about you. Like, what?
Yeah.
See, this is how, like, and I hate being associated with the left because the lefties are like this. They want to appear virtuous. They want to
Mhm.
appear like they're such great people. But the reason they're so against this whole racism thing, as they say, is because that's just what they're projecting. And
Yeah.
their racism comes out in other ways, as you just exemplified. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? What about the
I mean,
bigotry of low expectations?
I was just about to say that that's the most appalling one, the soft bigotry of low expectations. I
Yeah,
mean, the
man.
the fact that you expect people, like, how people want test scores to be lowered in order for more black people to get. I'm like, are you serious? Like,
Yeah.
so you're saying that the only way that black people or minorities could get into STEM fields is if we lower test scores. And there are actual black PhDs in physics and other fields that are like, yeah, this is a good idea. And I'm like, you like, have you thought twice about this at all? I mean, yeah, it blows my mind. But the worst are usually the non-black, like very left-leaning types that try to like coddle me, and then they try to
Ugh.
talk to me about like, oh, you could be a part of this or that. And then when I kind of open up to them, I start asking them questions,
Yeah.
and they lay it out all on me, and they think like, I agree with them, and then I end up not agreeing with them in a civil way, of course. And then they stop talking to me, and then I hear from someone else that, hey, I found your page through blah 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 blah. They were talking about you were like this,
Mm-hmm.
or you were a misogynist or something, but I don't see that. And there's been a lot of people who found my page based off of like he say she say.
Negative shit.
Yeah, basically.
So
So
this whole idea of coddling, no, nothing past an infant should be coddled.
yeah,
I think that it's the worst way to deal with problems. It enables the worst kinds of behaviors. And why the fuck are adults coddling adults? Doesn't it frustrate you that professors are like, "Oh, it's okay."
yeah,
We have to give trigger warnings. Dude, you're in a university. What kind of bitch shit is going on in your goddamn universities?
exactly. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's so
It blows my
embarrassing.
mind.
Teachers,
Yeah,
professors are supposed to be able to have the wherewithal to be like, "Hey, get it together. You're supposed to provide guidance. You're supposed to be somebody that somebody can come to for guidance and knowledge and information." But some of these professors get caught up in this shit because they don't want to get fired. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
you good?
yeah. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, I'm good. That's background. You might hear my dogs barking
That's
too,
okay.
but
I
yeah,
did already, but that doesn't bother me.
yeah.
We're all about the real life stuff here, okay? Don't worry about
Okay, good, good,
it.
good. Yeah, but yeah, no, I mean, like I agree with you. It's supposed to be an environment where ideas are welcome, where people are welcome to talk about like whatever it is that they do, but yet people want people to be like excommunicated out of university. Like there's been professors that are forced to resign,
Ban
yeah, banned
speakers off
speakers. Yeah,
campus.
that's stupid. That's so stupid. Especially like when they try to do it with public universities. It's like, no, like this is taxpayer money. Like you're not supposed to ban certain people just because you disagree with them.
Hmm.
And Charles Murray got attacked on some campus. I forgot which campus it was, but he was attacked. Uh,
All over a
and
disagreement because the man did
yeah,
studies for a number of years and people didn't like the way the results turned out.
and people, and no, not only that, but people didn't even read the results. Like they
Yeah.
attack one chapter,
Hmm.
one part of the chapter, and they didn't even like read through it. Like he never came to the conclusion like, well, whatever they're saying, because they say all types of things. Like he's saying that black people are all on the opposite side of the bell curve and this, that, and the third. And it's like, no, he didn't say that at all. Like, I mean, what are you talking about? And again, like the bell curve is a really big book. I've only read half of it, and I
Hmm.
read the chapter that a lot of people had a problem with. That was one of the chapters I read first because I wanted to get that out of the way and make sure, like, you know, that I knew what I was talking about whenever I would refer to him in the future. And I saw nothing wrong there. Like, it was all scientific. Of course, that's not my field of expertise, but at the same time, like, I could understand what he was talking about because he said a lot of the things in layman terms.
Hmm.
And I mean, it's clear as day. He wasn't saying anything, wrong. He wasn't making any political opinions around that. He was just stating statistics
Hmm. So
and
that's
what they
the
found.
difficult thing is because the racial element is involved. Like people hear, like even when talking about black crime statistics, they hear,
Mhm.
"Oh, you're saying that I'm criminal because I'm black. You're saying my IQ is low because I'm black." And it's like, no, 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 no. You're getting the cause and effect really fucked up here, okay? When
Mhm.
it comes to this, we're saying there's a certain group that exhibits a certain behavior, and these are the numbers, and that is it. And with the
Yeah.
intelligence thing, again, it's just genetics playing out a certain way, and things level out a certain way, and they just are the way they are. Nobody makes them that way.
Yeah.
These
I
are just
mean,
expressions of nature.
yeah, yeah. People think that evolution starts and stops from like the neck down. Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like they
Mhm.
think that they don't include the brain, they don't include DNA and stuff like that. I mean,
Yeah.
these things happen, and they happen with different groups, and they change in time too. I mean, there was a time when Japanese people weren't looked at as like one of the smartest groups on earth,
Mhm.
but their culture changed, like a massive change after the war, after tons of other things. I mean, even China was multiple dynasties. I think 30 something dynasties or something like that.
Mhm.
They had tons of war. They were looked at as like violent people for maybe centuries. I know for at least like 5 decades or so they were, but now they're known as one of the smartest groups. Again, like
Mhm.
it's all about culture, and
Yes.
how that culture embraces education and hard work and other
Mhm.
things that are beneficial to the group.
Yes. You
But
know what? I've
you
been
know,
talking to my friend about this too, and like, ideally, we could just remove race from the conversation entirely because at the end of the day,
mhm.
culture is more important than race.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Especially we're getting into we've been mixing up a lot for a while. I imagine there's going to be more mixing. There's going to be more
Mhm.
global traveling and moving places and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And where a person ends up culturally is going to determine largely how they're going to behave because they're adapting in conjunction to that environment. Culture
Hmm.
encompasses environment in such a
Yeah.
deep way, you know, like everybody around you is going to influence you, and that's how culture works. So we need to have good parts of our culture really emphasized, and we need to pull out the unnecessary things that people are actually bringing into the conversation to cause people to argue and fight and be more divided.
Exactly, and that's where I usually clash with the extreme right. Like usually I clash with the extreme right because they think culture and race are intertwined, and they think that you can't separate them, and
There are
you know,
cultures for
culture
sure.
sticks.
We're
Yeah,
gonna,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
definitely,
Mm-hmm.
definitely. So yeah, there are correlations, but like they think that because you have a certain culture, that's going to be your culture no matter what. There's no such thing as changing them. But if you
Mm-hmm.
look at history, there are many different um, races that have changed cultures dramatically and have had a prosperous future because they changed their cultures dramatically. I mean, I think American culture is a great example of that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you have people who came over here as pilgrims, and they came with a certain ideal, and they had like a sort of elitist type of thing, and a lot of people weren't educated that were poor. Now, there are many people who are educated, poor and rich, and free speech is a relatively new idea in the
Mm-hmm.
world. Like a lot of people don't realize that free speech wasn't always a thing anywhere. So because of that, we've witnessed like a mass change in culture and the
Mm-hmm.
way that education works. So yeah, I just think that people need to be more mindful of that and
Yeah.
how much culture influences society.
We need to be able to, but again, that requires some sort of frontal lobe activity from individuals, right? Like people need to be aware what kind of shit they're adding to the culture or taking away from the culture. And
Hmm.
the other thing too is I had a point and I totally forgot, Eric.
I hate when that happens. It's all good. It'll probably happen to me like in this conversation, but it's all good. Yeah, when it comes back, just interrupt me.
Oh man,
Yeah.
it was something about culture. Oh, right. The thing about culture that we're gonna find a problem with is that we want the changes to take place overnight.
Hmm.
Cultural shifts are slow, right?
Yeah.
It requires a really large paradigm shift, and I this is where the difficulty comes in, right? Is how do you it's a quote that Sam Harris had, like how do you tell someone to value evidence if they don't already value evidence? You know what I mean? Like how do you get somebody to care about something that they don't really care about? I don't know how to do that.
I think you personalize it. So I've noticed through communicating science, for instance,
Yeah.
you have to personalize it based on what people know. I tend to like a lot of people look at other people's pages to find something they could talk bad about, but I look at other people's pages to see how people are and what they
Hey,
like, their
me
likes and dislikes.
too.
You know what I mean? Like so I
Yeah.
could know the person better. That's the
Mhm.
reason why I do that. So I'll go to their page and I'll look, and then I'll make an analogy based off something
Mhm.
maybe from their page. So if I see a whole bunch of basketball stuff, for instance, I'll go and I'll make a basketball analogy, including whatever talk that we're talking about.
You're like a Neil deGrasse Tyson 2.0.
uh, yeah, sort of. I mean, I don't. I think
No,
he
I'm
does a
just
great
kidding.
job at.
I'm just
Yeah, I
kidding.
know what you meant. But no, he. I like him because he does talk about the real complex topics and stuff. I just wish he was not as afraid to talk about race.
Yeah.
You know, he's talked about it before with Sam Harris a little bit, but he's like really scared to talk about that subject. And I also wish that he was a little bit I
Dude,
don't
he's
know,
like the Barney of the science community. So, like,
basically.
as much as I
Yeah.
want to be like, look, Neil, you have a responsibility. You're like, you're one of those, and I hate, again, I hate to bring it to race, but like, black people say they want black heroes, right? He's a
Yeah.
great one. Dude,
Yeah.
what a
Yeah.
great influence that is for your children. If that's what black people care about is having decent black role models, that's a great place to start. And say what you want about him, whatever. He's a decent guy. He has a job, he
Yeah.
wants to do it. I get if he doesn't want to participate in all this shit because
Yeah.
it's honestly it's a bag of knots. It's just a mess.
Yeah.
And like it'll probably interfere with his career and the goals that he has to just communicate shit. And that sucks too. So you got to weigh the pros and cons and you got to be a little bit charitable to somebody like
Yeah.
that.
Plus he got Me Too,
Yeah.
which is unfortunate. He got Me Too. So
What?
like
Oh,
that
he
yeah.
did.
Yeah. Like cause and that's another thing I was gonna talk about on my pages and my blog and YouTube and everything. Cause like another physicist, Lawrence Krauss, he was Me Too first.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah,
like
I heard about
BuzzFeed, like
that.
did this whole thing about Lawrence Krauss, and then
Yeah.
they went to Neil deGrasse Tyson, and that one, it was just crazy. I thought that was very, there was something wrong with that. I didn't
Yeah.
like the fact that one of the women, like she was writing a whole bunch of like blogs about him in the past, and then she's also into like a lot of the pseudoscience stuff and the you know the homeopathy stuff and the like the crystal healing and all that stuff. I mean, I love crystal stuff, but like she's into like the wacky
Reiki,
stuff,
that Reiki shit or whatever?
something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so yeah, her and her claims are weird. And then the one that was originally saying that on the Cosmo set, like he was being creepy and all this other stuff. And I think she was his assistant, maybe. I'm
Okay.
not sure. But yeah, like he invited her to get like cheese and wine one time. And, like she said something about that and she felt uncomfortable with him. But I like the way he addressed it. I wish all people who were
What did he do?
accused
Remind me.
addressed it. He went on Facebook and wrote like a article about it and addressed the claims, like each claim that
Oh,
came out
wow.
about him in the detail. And he talked about like he did invite her here and he did do this or that, but like the claims that she was saying, like he was like that's not true. So and then he's also mentioned the fact that there were people on set that saw how she was and their relationship or whatnot, and how he hugs, or I think he didn't want to hug her or something like that, and she felt uncomfortable about that. Like he just shook her hand or something. But yeah, I don't know. It was just that was just an
He
odd
didn't hug
situation.
her and she complained because she felt rejected or some dumb shit,
I think
probably.
so. I really think so because, and then she said that he made a comment such as because like we have such a good conversation. I know it will be more than that because Neil is married.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he said something like that at one point. But again, like that whole thing was a little weird. And the science community, oh my gosh, the feminist science community, they jumped on him like,
I
oh, I
bet.
knew he
Yeah, I
was
bet.
creepy. Like he touched my back when we met, or he touched my shoulder, and he even asked. Like they would say stuff like that, and I'm like, Really?
Isn't
Like,
it interesting how these claims always come out like after the person is famous? Like you
always.
didn't go to the cops before when you were uncomfortable, you didn't tell anybody before. All of a sudden, the guy's like doing tours around the country, making shows and oh, hey, he touched me funny and I'm really uncomfortable 30 years later or whatever, 10 years later, 5 years
Yeah, and
later,
it makes no
whatever.
sense. It makes no
No.
sense.
You know
That's
what?
what part.
These drama hags, they just want their
Yeah,
claim to fame. They just want to leech off someone else and they don't want to have to work and they just want money for being fucked
yeah.
with. That's it.
And what's sad is like there are some people that were in the early atheism movement that did the same thing to Lawrence Krauss. So, for instance, do you know who Christina Rad?
Christina Rad, yeah, I saw her video when the whole thing happened.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I found another video where she talks about her time like on that same panel where she said she was touched, and she said, "Oh, nothing ever happened to me." This, that, and the third, like totally, like claiming like she's never experienced anything. And trust me, I understand that sometimes people don't want to say certain things
Mm-hmm.
on camera because they don't want to piss certain people off, whatever
Yeah.
the case may be. However, like it does make your claims a little less credible if you've been in an interview and you've
Mm-hmm.
talked about this before, and then you waited until all these people jumped on him to say whatever, and then her reasoning behind it was, well, he said my friend lied, so therefore I felt like I needed to come out and say something. It's like, what? Like, so you're defending your friend, and you're talking about your experience just because you're defending your friend. Like,
Yeah.
what if your friend was lying? What if your friend exaggerated something that happened? Because I'm not saying at all in both situations that it didn't happen. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
it did. We don't have all the information. However, how it came out and the information that was delivered, it's just not as credible as they made it seem to be.
It's just too bad because when that stuff comes out on the internet as well, at first when people see it, they immediately believe it, right? Because they don't want to do any digging. Personally, it's not something that I would want to get into, but if I'm not going to get into it, I'm not
Yeah,
going to think any more than what I've seen and just be like, "Meh, she could be fucking bullshitting. She could be
yeah,
not. It's really inconsequential to me."
yeah,
But
yeah.
I think it's a really negative thing to do because there are real victims out there who have real difficulty talking about their issues. And these girls are coming out like, if you get touched, the last thing you should do is get on YouTube.
That's misogynistic.
The last thing you should
Same.
do is get on YouTube, and the first thing you should do is talk to the authorities and for the professionals. Keep your fucking mouth shut and deal with the problems in your real life.
You're a rape apologist,
I
Amy.
know. Oh man. Oh my god, I'm of the belief that you're innocent until proven guilty too. And like look at all these fake rape allegations that have come out, you know? Like
That's
what
another
about the
thing.
remember Mattress Girl? You remember Mattress Girl?
Oh yeah, and they're,
Get
they're still
out.
pushing for that. Like she's still like going behind her lie and still posting about it. Like, oh, she never received justice because they never followed the case. Everyone shut up about the Duke lacrosse team thing. Everyone shut up about the NFL player where he had his jewelry stolen by his ex, and then she said that he sexually assaulted and beat her, and then she admitted in court that he lied. I mean that she lied,
Mhm.
and no one said anything about that. That what's that comedian's name? And Aziz Ansari, I think.
Mhm. Oh yeah, Aziz Ansari.
Yeah, yeah, he went through something, and she basically had an experience where it was like awkward or whatever. But
Yeah, and she called
in
it
that,
sexual assault. Oh my god, do people think that bad dates and uncomfortable situations don't exist? Like people are just trying so hard to just make everything comfortable. They just avoid all uncomfortable situations so that as soon as it happens, it's like a big thing. Oh, he harassed me. No, he tried to kiss you because that's what I don't know. I can't remember what it was, but that's the example. Someone
mhm,
tries to kiss you. They're testing the waters. Guess what? You don't have to kiss them back. And you can just say,
yeah,
I'm not interested. You don't have to say he tried to like harass you. You're on a fucking date and you're alone with a guy. Like, what do you think
yeah,
is
and
gonna
and
happen?
don't go to his house.
Yeah.
And she's talking about, I feared for. Well, I don't think she said I fear for my life, but I know a lot of people use that as an excuse. Like maybe she feared for her life. Really, she feared that she was going to get beat by this famous comedian and stuff like that. Doesn't even make any
It was
sense.
like the Louis C.K. thing, right? Like, if you girls don't want to watch him jerk off, leave.
Exactly.
Right? I'm sorry. I know it's an
Yeah.
awkward situation. It might have been inappropriate that he pulled his dick out, whatever, but you know you
Yeah.
have legs. You're not a tree.
Yeah. And then
Move.
tell him later on, like, hey, I'll leave it at that. Like, I don't understand why you have to come out years later and announce it to the world like this happened. Like, because they tried to do that with Robin Williams after that whole incident with Louis C.K. They said
Mm-hmm.
like he did something similar on
Robin
set.
Williams is
Well,
dead.
Robin Williams. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
So
that's tacky, yo. That's
yeah, I know.
tacky. Wow.
Yeah. So they said like he did something similar on set. So
Mm.
I'm not sure how true that is, but like to come out years later just to say that, I mean, to me, I just don't see any other reason people do that other than for attention.
Yeah. It's pretty
It's just
shitty.
pure attention. Yeah.
I
Yes.
don't know. I like attention is a nice thing, but I never feel like I don't know what it is. I never need to go to lengths to get it. Like those people need friends, man. You need real friends and connections in your life so that you're getting the correct kind of attention that you need and so that you're not fucking out there being a jackass and causing a problem in society because we all have to suffer for your fucking dumb shit.
Yeah. And I think conflict management is not taught nearly
No.
enough.
Oh my God, Eric. I love that you said that because that's something
I
I
really don't
harp
think so.
on.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I mean, conflict management needs to be a lot more when it comes to people,
Mm-hmm.
because if you could talk things through, if you could come to someone and say, hey, I don't like this,
Mm-hmm.
and be able to address it, I think that is an issue in itself.
But what does
And
that come down to? It comes down to what I said in the beginning. If you cannot manage your emotions, your
mm,
conflict management is going to be real shit. The other thing is the only way to fucking figure out how to manage conflict is to do it when you're in real conflict. People avoid
yeah,
conflict, and when they get into conflict, they just blow up and freak out, and then that's the pattern, right? Every time there's a conflict, that's either just rage quit or just rage.
yeah, and like I have a question for you. Do you think this is more of a, when it comes to men or women?
I think it's an across the board thing.
You think so?
Yeah, I think men actually engage in more of these discussions than women do. So I
Hmm.
think purely based on that, it probably would be men. But I think that I don't think women or men generally are very good at
Hmm.
conflict management. And I think that
I agree.
like women and men shouldn't be at odds with each other the way that they are. We should just accept that we're a totally different sexes and b
Hmm.
our wants are different. We are biologically driven towards different things. We are cognitively driven towards different things because of that underlying biology, and it's okay. Like guys, it's okay if a woman can't do some crazy hard construction job, that doesn't mean she's not strong. It just means she's not suited for it. If a man
Exactly.
can't do fucking nails and hair, it just means he's not suited for it or he has no interest, and it's okay.
It's okay.
Like, no big
It's
deal,
okay.
dude. You want to wear a dress? You fucking go for it. Have at her. You want to wear a suit and tie, lady? Have fun. Go for it. Just don't fucking tell me what to do. And I'll leave you
Exactly.
alone. Right?
It's all
Like,
about personal freedom.
yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And that bothers me. The other thing to talk about too is it just popped into my head. So the drug laws, right?
Hmm.
I think more and more I think about it, it's like if you don't have the freedom to mess with your own body, your own consciousness, your own whatever, then what freedom do you have really? Because I feel like people should be allowed to fuck up, and if they die, first of all, probably a good thing. That's just a part of
Natural
nature.
selection.
Yep. People who are gonna do stupid shit are gonna do stupid shit and they're gonna die. And I'm sorry to be cold about it, but I think they should. There's too many people to take care of. And if people wanna fuck with their lives like that, let them fucking die, man. Let them
Yeah,
fucking
natural
die.
selection. Natural
Yeah, that's
selection.
it. It's the Darwin Awards for a reason. And survival of the fittest is a thing for a reason. And like instead of trying to intervene and just save all the lives, You know, if someone wants to fuck with their life and kill themselves, let them. Right? It's like seatbelt. There's a fine for it, and I think it's fair. But at the same time, if they don't want to wear their seatbelt and something happens to them, well, too fucking bad, man.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
consequences. I'm a consequentialist. Like, I'm not a big fan. I mean, I understand it can get out of control, right? I don't want everybody out in the street just like fucking doing drugs. And but the thing
yeah,
is, if they're gonna do something bad on drugs that's against the law, well, now you have grounds to arrest them.
yeah.
That's what the
And
law's for.
preventing that from happening, forming laws that infringe on your freedoms, I don't think that's a good model.
Yeah.
We've seen this experiment play out across countries
Mm-hmm.
and across cultures, and it's like government regulating what we can and can't put into our bodies. It just hasn't worked. You know, it doesn't detour people from getting on the drugs. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
detour people from using it or selling it. Like
Why do you
people
think
find.
underground shit happens, right? Okay, like it's like this
Mhm,
abortion thing in
mhm.
Alabama. Have you been paying attention to this
I
crazy
have.
shit?
Mm,
If you're going to outlaw abortion, people are going to find ways to get them. People are going to start fucking shoving things in their bodies that are going to fuck them up and cause bigger complications. Like
mhm,
safety and access to medical care when is necessary is fair. And like there's this really neat argument I heard recently that I never really considered before, and it's like say you needed my liver or you needed a kidney, right? And I was matching your blood type and I was the closest near you. Could they compel me to give you my other kidney? Could they say you need to give him your kidney? Because I would be acting as a form of life support for you if I was doing that, right? You can't
mhm,
force somebody to do that. And in the same way, you shouldn't force a woman to carry a baby if she does not
mhm,
want to. If she doesn't want to be a form of life support for that baby, you shouldn't
mhm.
force her to do it. And people are like,
Yeah.
that's selfish. Everybody's just going to fucking get them now. And it's like, how easy do you think that whole situation is? Do you think an abortion is an easy thing? Do you think girls are like, oh my God, I have to get an abortion? So much fun. It's abortion Thursdays. Like, nobody's fucking
Yeah.
celebrating. It's a hard
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
to do. So if a girl who's young or even a girl who is older is not ready to invest in the 18 years and the actual challenge and difficulty it takes to raise a baby, I think she and her husband or boyfriend should have a choice.
Mhm.
Obviously, right? That's just the duh answer. There's
Yeah.
all
So
these.
so you do think that like the other party should have a choice to like the boyfriend or the
Yeah,
husband
I
should
do.
have some say.
I definitely don't think that it's important for both people who are having a child to kind of have an opinion on that, right? Of course the man who
Yeah.
made the child should be involved.
Yeah. And
That's some
so that's where
equality
I.
shit. We're all about that
Yeah.
equality, you
Yeah.
know?
And see that's the part where I mostly I guess are at odds with the pro-choice movement because I don't consider myself pro-life or pro-choice. I'm still forming my opinion on this
Mhm.
whole thing. And this, I mean, obviously, I think the Alabama bill is like a horrible bill because it's a blanket solution to
Mhm.
it. It's like taking it off the table immediately and not making it a case by
Exactly.
case thing.
Yeah.
And it's not that scientific. On top of that, I mean, there's so many problems with it.
Mhm.
However, it goes back to what we are talking about with like taking self responsibility. Like I
Mhm.
understand, for instance, that people don't, they don't do things in order to get abortion, that they don't go
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
table and say like, okay, like I'm going to have an abortion, everything's going to be good,
Mhm.
an accident, and that happens. But there are cases, of course, where one party wants it, another party doesn't, and then on top of that, like when we talk about access, I mean there's also access to cheaper forms of contraceptives, and then on top of that, like they're least expensive or they're less expensive than abortion, and then on
Mhm.
top of that, like a lot of these services are somewhat funded by taxpayer dollars, and that's what the right has a issue mostly. It's just like, okay, like your body your choice, cool, but my wallet my choice,
Yeah, you know
and
what's
that's where they're
amazing?
coming from.
The best fucking thing to do is put in place a preventative measure because it eliminates the issue of the religious people saying that now a soul has been conceived because it's preventative. It doesn't even allow that process to occur. But for some reason, there's no promotion of birth control. Dude, birth control should be free. Every woman should have access to birth control, and then you'd have to worry about abortion way fucking less.
Yeah,
Way
in
fucking
the
less.
perfect world, I would like that, but
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
at the same time, that there are people who, do hard research and they make the product, and I
Yeah.
think they should be compensated.
Oh, no, for sure. I agree with that. Yeah.
So I mean, that's the only bad thing. But of course, yeah, I do think that should be a thing, because I don't know how IUDs work. For instance, like, are they available to?
I just got one. Should we talk?
Oh,
Let's
great.
talk IUDs. I can tell you everything I know.
Yeah. Tell me all about.
Okay, so there's a
To
few
women.
there's a few different kinds. There's a copper
Okay.
IUD, which is actually it's just copper with like a little bit of wiring around it, and all it does is it makes your uterus a hostile place, so no fertilization can take place. Not the best one for me, just because apparently it can cause worse cramps, and you don't want
Yeah.
that.
So it's
So
a uteral black hole, basically.
yeah. Exactly. So nothing can
Yeah.
happen. And then there's the
Yeah.
hormonal ones. So there's the Marina, which is the one I've got now, just honestly just like 2 weeks ago.
Hmm.
And it over 5 years, it releases a very small dose of a female hormone, and it prevents the biological events that need to occur in your uterus that help implantation. So, the thickening of the uterine lining and that kind of stuff. So that doesn't
Hmm.
happen. It also actually works as a physical barrier. It's shaped kind of like a T, and the ends are kind of bent down so nothing can pass into the fallopian tubes.
Hmm.
Eggs can't implant themselves in the uterine wall because of that, because there's nowhere for them to stick to. And then it also, over time, decreases periods, because the whole thing the period is just that shedding
Yeah.
when there's no fertilization. So it was a fairly easy process. I mean, a little bit of pain for sure. But
Hmm.
to not have to worry about something for 5 years like that, and the success rate and statistics are great. I mean, there's very few complications. The numbers are
Hmm.
negligible in terms of what can go wrong. Like, if it's not placed in your uterus properly, it can actually perforate and migrate to different parts of your body.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, so it is a little
Dang.
crazy.
Yeah. I
However,
guess there's risk with everything.
of course, if you're
Yeah.
going to put a foreign object in your body, you have to accept that there's some risk.
Yeah.
But however, if they put it in properly, they'll check it. You'll have a better success rate. Generally, it has to do with the placement, or it has to do with, like, apparently if you're breastfeeding, your uterus is mushier. My doctor told me, so it's harder for the thing to stay in place, and that's the cases in which it happens most. I don't think I really need to worry about that. So
Yeah.
yeah. It's nice because it's low maintenance. It's there. I don't think about it anymore. And it actually has reduced the cramps greatly. So it's like, can't complain. And you're supposed to,
Perfect.
by the end of the 5 years, not even have a period anymore. Right?
Oh, great.
Yeah. So it's cool. There's that option. There's a whole line of pills that have just like, different, they have different levels of the progestin and estrogen, because some women need more estrogen and some more progestin, and it just depends on your body. But to have to take that every single day at the same time, it just kind of gets a little bit tedious, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But the
Yeah. No,
doctor
I
is
think that's
here.
awesome.
Yeah, the doctors are great. My doctor was really cool. Ask all the questions. Like, they give you all the pamphlets. They tell you exactly how it's going to work. Like, as soon as I was done, she's like, we're going to book you for your ultrasound, and then we're going to book you for another appointment just to check that everything is good. And then you're set. And if you have any problems, you can book with us again, and we can check it out for you. And that's that.
That's awesome. I mean, is this available for women under the age of 18 at all, or?
I don't know how it works in the States. Like, over here, when I was 14 is when I started birth control, and at the youth clinic, they actually provided it for free. So I
Okay.
got them for free for a number of years. And then when I turned 18, obviously I was recognized as an independent person, so then I was now having to pay for it.
Okay.
I Over here it's pretty easy access. I don't know about the States,
Oh, okay.
right? Like,
Yeah.
this thing needs a prescription. But the
Hmm.
pill you can get, like, they'll give you a consultation and
Yeah.
everything.
I just wish there was like some voluntary option where taxpayers could say, okay, I want to support this or I don't want to
Yeah, yeah,
support
that'd be
it. You
cool,
know what I
hey?
mean? Because
Yeah.
I mean, I truly think a lot of people would support something like that,
Hmm.
especially like IUDs for
Hmm.
teenagers, because
Like
that
elective
would do it like it.
elective taxes, right? Like
Hmm.
so there's a list of things that you have to contribute to, and then for all the elective things, they could have like check boxes, and that's where the funds will be allocated based on whoever chose to contribute. That's kind of a cool way to
Yeah,
do
and then
it.
to provide some incentive behind it, like, oh,
Hmm.
a discount on this or doing this or whatever,
Hmm.
kind of like how we do with big entities like businesses with tax cuts or whatever the case may be. So
Hmm.
yeah, I think that would be a good option. But yeah, a lot of people aren't talking about that because they're all on the, oh, the soul is
Oh, dude, they're
this
caught
or
up
blah
with
blah blah.
killing babies right now. All they can think about is fucking
Like
dead babies.
first of all, I hate the whole terminology babies because the baby is an
Yeah,
infant
yeah.
is already born,
Mm-hmm.
so when we talk about what a baby is, like they're using that language in order it to strike an emotional
But you've
response in
hit
people.
the bedrock of the disagreement, and the bedrock is one side thinks this is a human being already, okay,
Hmm.
and one side does not. One side is this is a set of cells. This is a blastocyst. This is
Hmm.
not a baby yet. This doesn't even have a heartbeat. Like, and then this side's like, no, fucking the soul the soul enters a body at conception or whatever the fuck it is, and it's like it's
Yeah, and
woo
then
woo
they use.
versus not woo woo, but these people think this is
Mhm.
woo woo, right?
Yeah, yeah, and then also like they use the whole like oh yeah, in medical terminology is this, but then at the same time they use babies instead of
Yeah.
zygote or embryo or fetus, like what it really supposed to be called. And I hate when they put all these videos out about how abortions are done and they only do what happens 20 weeks and on, and they don't do what happens like before 20 weeks or like where most abortions happen like 6 to 10 weeks,
Well,
is
they're
it
going to
six
show
to eight
you the
weeks
worst of the worst. You know that. They have to, like you said, they have to manipulate you emotionally in order to get you to change your mind. And a lot of the time, because people are fucking suckers, they
Mhm.
buy into that shit, dude. Like, it's
They do,
so
yeah.
dumb. Someone can get on TV and cry about the dumbest shit, and you know there's going to be like 20% of people who are like, oh no, girl, cry. Huh. You know, and that's it. Like it's such a primitive reaction
Yeah,
to emotional
yeah,
expression.
yeah, and like we know that it's a human embryo, human zygote, or whatever, and the right doesn't like understand that when we say like it's a clump of cells that's about to form into what we
Mm-hmm.
know as if a fetus or whatnot. But when we say that, they get all emotional and they say certain things.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think there are also philosophical arguments you could bring here
Sure.
towards morality, like
Sure.
the convenience aspect of it. But
Mm-hmm.
then the reason why I haven't formed like a
Yeah, you're
full
like back
opinion
and
on this
forth.
yet.
You ping pong, right? I
Yeah,
do that too
yeah, yeah,
sometimes, right? Because I understand where they're coming from. I get it.
yeah,
It's a tough
yeah.
thing to kind of deal. If you actually think it's a baby, that's an
Hmm.
emotionally difficult thing to reconcile with. So I try
Yeah,
to be understanding too.
yeah. And
Sorry,
then
go
some
ahead,
have
Eric.
children. No, no, it's cool. Some have children, and so when they hear abortion, they
Mm-hmm.
automatically see their child being
Yeah, yeah.
like taken apart in the way they show in these videos. So
Mm-hmm.
very emotional response, but they have to keep in mind that one, it's not happening that way, and two, there are philosophical discussions that need to be taking place. And I ping pong because, okay, for instance, convenience. That's the the most common way people have abort, or the common reason why people have abortions, because convenience. Like I'm not economically um, set up to the point where I could have a child right now,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or my family wouldn't like this, whatever the case may be. And we could talk about whether that's shallow or not. But then there's the convenience of, okay, what if the mom's life is in danger or their
Mm-hmm.
health? Because sometimes their life isn't in danger, but they could have permanent health effects if they were to go through with this pregnancy, like, so the mom's health is in jeopardy. And you could easily say, well, you know, the zygote or the embryo didn't decide to be there, but at the same time it's like, well, the mom should have some type of say in
Mm-hmm.
this, because so it's a very hard thing to truly come to a solid stance of. And when people are extreme either way, it blows my mind. I mean,
You know, people from the
I,
right, they come at that argument of like, it's not fucking anybody else's fault. Tell that bitch to close her legs. She shouldn't be. She should be. She shouldn't be allowed to have an abortion. Fuck her. She should have the kid. And it's like, do you not understand that that's actually anti the kid's future? Because if this lady is not ready to have a baby, and if she doesn't want to give it up for adoption, because that's really fucking difficult to do too,
mhm,
that kid's gonna have a really rough life because it's gonna be born
yeah.
into a fucking family or with a mother that doesn't even want it. How do you think she's gonna
Mhm.
treat that kid? That kid's gonna grow up with trauma. He's gonna take that shit out on other people, or he's gonna get bullied and be fucked up. There's gonna be issues there, you know?
Yeah, yeah, there's gives and takes when both. And I mean, I've recently just changed my mind about something because I know a couple of people where they've had abortions and it like ruined them, like
Yeah.
completely ruined them. Like they think about it all the time, they kind of regret it. So I looked up like scientific studies based on this, like whether women have bad psychological effects from
Mm-hmm.
having
They
abortions.
can.
And believe it or not, yeah, believe it or not, most they actually benefit off of it. Like when it comes to educationally, like that they'll have a higher education if they were to get an abortion. They experience more happiness, all
Mm-hmm.
this other stuff, multiple studies. So like I was really amazed by that. I
You
thought
remember
that
what Hitch
numbers
said?
would be,
He said the first thing that's going to progress a society is to give women the rights over their reproductive organs.
I never really heard his, well, I kind of did. I've heard his, that, but I never really, like, do you know which like book he talks about that a lot in?
I think it was actually a talk. He said that in.
Okay.
He said it in a number of places. But yeah, I'll try and find it for you.
Yeah.
Every few
Yeah,
years, I
that's
go
really
back to
interesting.
people that I used to listen to. I haven't actually listened to Hitch in a while. There was a spurt where I was like, I was reading God is not great, and then I was like, oh, I just want to listen to everything Hitch is saying. A lot of the stuff
Yeah.
that I was listening to is like Islam stuff, though, right?
Yeah. Have you read Letter to a Young
Christian.
Contrarian?
No, it's on my list.
Oh, that's really good because he
Yeah.
talks about identity politics in there
Oh
too.
wait, Letter
Says
to a
he
Young
says you should
Contrarian.
have nothing to do with identity
I
politics.
think I do have that actually.
You probably do.
Yeah, I think I
I
do.
wouldn't be
It's
surprised.
like a small one, right? It's
Small
not a,
book,
yeah,
yeah,
okay, I do have
yeah,
it.
yeah.
I
I
just have a
figured.
poor
Yeah, I mean,
memory, Eric. My memory is so
yeah.
poor.
It's all good. Yeah, but he goes like it's basically like a letter to the people that like to be free thinkers
Hmm.
that he knows that follows him or whatever.
Yeah.
And he talks personally and he talks about like various things and about rebelling against popular ideas that are bad, and he talks about identity politics and how bad it is and stuff. So I really appreciate that book because it's like getting advice from a mentor or something. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
love
definitely
that.
check that out.
I find like
Yeah.
I'm always looking for mentors. I'm always looking for people to look up to and get good influences from, you know what I mean? And lately
Mhm.
though, I've been listening to more people that I don't agree with fully.
Me too.
I'm so bored of hearing my own views touted at me over and over. And I know we fundamentally agree on a lot of things and stuff. This is
Mhm.
a friendly chat, but generally like
Mhm.
I don't need to have my views reinforced. I feel like at this point I need them challenged constantly. Cuz I want
Yeah.
reasons to believe in things. I don't just want to accept information totally. I know there's some things that I'm just going to accept because the word has come in from the experts and they know better than I do, and I don't have time to get into the nitty-gritty of all of this stuff. But, generally yeah, that's what I've been doing, and I find it spices things up. It's interesting. Like, what are you listening to right now? What are you into on the internet? Do you even have time with all your school and stuff or what?
Yeah, yeah, I have time. So between my commutes to from school to and from work, I listen to audiobooks.
Mm,
I've been listening to a lot of Thomas Sowell, like a lot of his stuff,
mm-hmm.
because I've recently got really into economics and stuff. So I started with macroeconomics. I had a macro class last semester, and I got an A in there, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But uh, like I realized how important
The
economics is.
economy is. Me too. I'm
Yeah, when it comes
actually,
to everything, because a lot of people, it's about money. It's not about money. It's about resources, and those
yeah.
resources could be like information. It could be objects. It could be money, but it doesn't. And then it's all about like how to allocate resources
Yeah.
and why there are trade-offs, why that there are risks involved with everything, and how you should be um, mindful of that. And like he just goes across like all these ideas that we talk about, be it with identity politics, be it with culture, be it with popular economics facts and fallacies, which is one of the titles of his books. And he just talks about all of it in great detail. I mean, of course, I even try to find things in there that I disagree with, or stuff like even when I'm listening to someone I agree with heavily, I try to find like, okay, maybe that argument isn't sound,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe I totally disagree with this idea, so I'm gonna put it to the side. And then, like you, I go to people I generally disagree with, and I try to read their books. I try to read their blogs and their work, and if they're not good arguments, I still try to steelman it and strengthen um, the reasons why I disagree with them
Mm-hmm.
in a way.
So,
Yeah.
economics, right? This is
Mhm.
something that has always kind of eluded me because I'm a girl. These are not things I generally give a shit about. But when you're running around these people talking about politics, the economy often comes up. So I myself am kind of trying to get a layman's perspective or a little bit of knowledge, just enough to be able to participate in listening to the conversations, right? So it's just recently come to my attention that economics is actually an incredibly important thing. Important thing. Of course, it's about the resources, but like I'm trying to understand like how all these things relate to each other. So I've been trying to listen to people talk about the whole China thing, like this trade war shit that's going on. Do you know anything
Oh,
about this?
I think about what the tariffs that are happening or something.
Me.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't followed it, but I've heard, people comment on it here and there, so I can't really speak on it
Yeah.
heavily like that.
You're just
Yeah.
soul. You've been listening to a lot of soul. That's who you
A lot of
recommend?
so yeah, that's who I recommend. Thomas Sowell, again, really like he's like an economic version of Sam Harris,
Okay.
basically.
So
Yeah.
are you furthering your economics education then, or was it just that one standalone class that you took?
Oh, I'm furthering it definitely because he
Oh
has
yeah.
a book called Basic Economics, and I'm going across that book, and then he has another book called Applied Economics, and I plan to, listen or read through that whenever I go through, because I just think that economics is very important for each and every field that you're in,
Yeah.
especially since I'm going to be a researcher, and when it comes to getting grants, when it comes to how to use resources, you have to be economic. You can't do every. I mean, he lays out this example, for instance, like if you're in war and you're a medical doctor, one, there aren't going to be enough medical doctors to tend to everyone. Like that's just a sad fact.
Mm-hmm.
All right, two, there are going to be different types of injured soldiers. There are going to be one, the injured soldier that's going to die, like their injuries are beyond repair.
Yeah.
There are going to be the ones where you could maybe save them, but it's still like really, really bad. Then there are the ones where you know that you could save them if you get to them in time.
Mm-hmm.
There are the ones where they have like minor injuries, but like you don't really have to tend to them in a certain amount of time. And
Yeah.
then, and then there's that spectrum. And what economics is finding out which one to tend to and which one to not tend to,
Yeah, yeah.
and that's what it
It's
comes.
about like
That's
efficiency of systems, right? Like
mhm.
that Thinking Fast and Slow book by Daniel Kahneman. Have you heard of it?
Yes,
So
yes,
he
yes. I haven't read
applies
it.
the whole principle of economics to emotions, and it's the same thing. It's like how Sam Harris says with language. You want to have an efficient economy that's moving things around in the most efficient and cost effective way possible. That's the goal. And that's what we're always trying to do. And like in conjunction with the economy, like these social issues just distract from what's happening in the economy that needs to function. Unfortunately, they do affect each other though, don't they? It's kind of
They do.
stupid. They shouldn't. Like the
Yeah,
economy is a
yeah,
separate thing.
yeah, yeah. But
It
the
affects the
system.
markets, right? Like all this dumb shit affects how the markets are operating within the system.
Exactly. So, if you have more, like, the reason why, for instance, in economics, they tend to go towards free market capitalism is because when you have private ownership of something, you could oversee what's happening with the resources a lot better than the government. Because if all the ownership is with the government and they're the one out resources and distributing everything, they have to deal with all these industries and they have to try their best to know how much resources go here and there. And that's the reason why the USSR didn't work, is because they had all these resources, but starvation happened because a lot of the food went bad because they didn't know how much to give here, they didn't know how much to give there.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in private industries, they could give out too much food like in 1 week, but then they could go, okay, we need to scale back and then do it. Whereas the government is just too much for them to keep track of.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where economics comes in at, and that's why it's important.
Yeah. What do you think
Yeah.
of Cortez's Green New Deal?
Oh my God. First of all,
Don't you think it's ambitious though? I
first
think
of
it's
all, like,
short-sighted for sure, but I mean,
yeah,
it's hard not to like you got to appreciate that someone wants change in a positive way, but it's just I
yeah.
always have such a difficult time with people who are like so Disney about shit.
So
Everybody
Disney,
should have electric cars and everything's
everybody
gonna
should have a job.
yeah, right?
Like,
Like
like you're assuming that everyone has a job, and you're assuming that everyone wants a job that you want them to have. Like,
yeah.
it's just not going to happen. There's some people who want to be entrepreneurs. There are some people who want to do nothing. Or,
Yeah.
those people exist, and to have that type of vision. Again, this is what Thomas Sowell calls the vision of the anointed, and he talks about the whole change thing. Now, change is cool and all, but a lot of people don't think about what type of change, because there could be change for the worse. I mean, we see the example of Hitler, Stalin, and such. They want to change,
Well, the thing is,
and
you
they
can't
got change.
force a square peg into a round hole. Change is something that is an incremental and gradual process. It's not something that you can just make happen. Evolution is a slow process. Things get better by tinkering over time, you know? Like, people think they can apply band aid solutions to problems and that fucking solves everything. It's like, everything is being handled wrong. We have serious detrimental aspects to the systems we're living in. We need to focus on those things and we need to start applying step by step methods to deal with them. Not like, here's a solution, our panacea has arrived, everything is good now. Like, there's no panacea in life unless it's communication.
Exactly.
Get better at communication. That's your panacea, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
Get your
and
feels in check, motherfuckers.
yeah,
Okay?
yeah. Facts over feelings, right?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's the issue there, because again, when it comes to change, you
Mm-hmm.
have to start where reality is. You can't start from what I want it to be, or this utopic vision that you have. You have to
Mm-hmm.
start from where it is, and then you have to use evidence, and that evidence could be statistical evidence, that evidence could be scientific, it could be history, because a lot of these plans, like socialism, has been tried in many areas and still is being tried, and it hasn't worked. Communism, and the way that it has been implemented, has been tried and still hasn't worked. There are many different systems that haven't worked across the board in history, yet
Mm-hmm.
people want to try it again and
And
again and again.
again.
And they're like, oh, well, it wasn't implemented right over here because of corruption,
Don't
or it
you
wasn't
love the
implemented right.
Marxist who thinks that they're gonna Marxist the best? Like that mentality across anybody who's like, actually, that guy didn't actually do it properly. I have all the knowledge and I'm gonna do this
The no
right.
truth Scotsman fallacy.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's a no truth Scotsman real version of what I envision. But here's the real vision from me, and mine is so much better than what is going on right here. Yeah, and it blows my mind. But with AOC, I mean,
You got the AOC? Yeah, you know me.
that's a good one. That's a good one. She politicians and celebrities like her do more damage to the scientific community or science in general than actual scientists do.
Yeah.
And I say that because when she says stuff like the world will end in 12 years if we don't do anything, that is beyond me. Like no scientist in the history of the world has ever said anything like that. You know what I mean?
In
Like,
12 years, God shall smite the earth.
it blows my mind. It's like 12 years, really? Like, where is this from? But what they do is they'll take a study that says in 12 years, X, Y, and Z will happen, meaning the effects of climate change, the effects of global warming or something. And she'll translate that to, oh my gosh, like meteors and asteroids will just come out of nowhere and bar the earth. And
You gotta jiggle your mic wire, Eric, because you suddenly went real quiet for me.
Oh, hold on.
Hold on.
Hold up. How about now?
No.
You said I got,
Oh, that's better. Okay.
That's better?
Yeah.
This is better?
Yeah, okay. I might have to fuck this up a second and turn you up some more.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
No, it's okay. You good, dog?
It is a little bit.
Whoa, there it
goes. You probably went up super loud too. Turn it down a little bit. You're like, ah!
You tripped me out, nigga.
Oh my god. But yeah, so
you're my coolest friend. I just want you to know you're so cool.
You're cool too.
I love you.
Yeah. But yeah, no, AOC and people like her, they do a lot of damage. And the Green New Deal, it's, to me, it's the climate version of the Alabama bill. Like it makes all of these crazy claims, and it's like a blanket solution that's not based in reality. And it's not going to do any good to the economy. And again, you have to be economically feasible here, because when it comes to climate research, you still have to allocate your resources in the right way. I mean, we do have enough data to conclude that humans are significantly contributing to climate change. I mean, we know this from not only NASA, ESA, and many other people. We know this from private universities that have no type of affiliation with the government. We know this from various other places that do independent research. We know this from ocean temperatures. We know this from atmospheric temperatures. We know this from satellite data as well as on-ground data. I mean, we know this from how plants are migrating and animals are migrating.
Well, I mean, just look at the coral reef, dude. Oh, isn't that so sad, Eric? The coral reef is just fucking dead.
Yeah, I mean, it's something, you know. But yeah, so we know that it's happening, and that's why I'm convinced people on the right, because they're still not convinced about that, because, you know, they hear the Charlie Kirks and stuff talk about like politics and this thing called Climate Gate, where some scientist said the data was smudged or something like that, but he wasn't talking about all the data. He was talking about this specific data point, you know what I mean? And they took that and they made it like this whole thing. So yeah, but I just think politicians and celebrities do a lot of harm. Like Al Gore, he did a lot more harm to climate change than I think any climate
celebrities should just shut the fuck. I feel like the value of expertise is declining so much because people have access to information on the internet. And like the thing that I don't think a lot of people understand is like when you're going through university, you're actually taught how to read properly. There's no confusion of interpretation because you're understanding like what you're reading. The whole point of going through university is to understand how to read properly and how to absorb that information properly. And these internet warriors who again read a couple of articles and they think they're intellectuals, you know what I mean? And they just like
Yeah.
playing the part. And they use these tactics of domination in these fucking lame ass debates, and they just think there's some gangster ass motherfucker out here, you know, like poning noobs about science.
Owning people on science, obliterated.
Right? And so they will start bringing up professionals from the field and start trying to refute their points, like they understand the depth of knowledge that has been just worked out over the years. This person has studied, worked things out. They've actually dug deep into the math, and they are the experts, and they're saying something, and then the public refuses to even accept the expert's opinion anymore because it's been so devalued because of the internet, right? Like,
Yeah, and like you said earlier in the beginning, it's been kind of diluted by the communicators of these ideas, you
yeah.
know, and simplified so much where the important information is getting out. Like, for instance, a lot of people that are conservative or Republican that I talk to, they often mention like, oh, well, is the sun actually taken into account? And it's like, of course it is. Like, when it comes to climate science, that's one of the main things. Like, that's just like a physicist not taking into consideration atoms or something, you know, like that's a core part of climate science. You know,
Yeah.
without the sun, there would be no climate.
The other thing
So
that's very difficult about discussing these issues is I'm really fucking tired of it being discussed through a left or right lens. This isn't about
yeah,
left or right.
100%.
Like, I understand that these issues are going to pop into the political forefront and they're going to be discussed because they're major aspects of our culture. But when we're
Mhm.
discussing the actual issues, we need to recognize that left or right doesn't matter. What matters is the facts about whatever you're talking about. Stop taking the conversation away to your emotions. Once again, it's that shit. Like, why are people so intent to adhere to a side? Like, I'm like this, you know?
Mhm.
I was probably more left a year ago, if you want to go that way. Now I feel like I'm a little bit more right. And I'm sure there's going to be things in my life that are going to curate me and make me go back again and think about it again, right? It just, you're always changing and fluid. And like, the more you
Yeah, you're kind
experience,
of varying degrees of right and left based on any
yeah.
specific idea because you might be extremely right when it comes to foreign policy, but then when it comes to like social or when it comes to like drugs or something, you might be left, you know? So
Yeah.
I mean, it all depends on the subject. It all
I
depends
just don't want to like
on
when
the
I'm
specific
having
thing.
discussions like with you, with friends, with people, I don't give a
Mhm.
fuck about your political side. Can we just
Exactly. Me
talk
too.
about the issue? Let's
Me
not
too.
waste our time. There are important
Mhm.
things to talk about and you're distracting from the conversation. And I just like you're wasting my time now. You know? I
Yeah.
want to be able to sit down. Ultimately, the goal is to be able to sit down with people you disagree with and just battle out the parts where you don't agree. Um, and understanding it's what's more important than winning, you know.
Yeah.
I
And
want to
then,
sorry, go ahead.
oh no, I'm sorry. I was
It's
interrupting you.
okay. I was just saying I would prefer to get along with people. I think on the whole, personally, I don't want to be a contentious person. I don't want to like seek out argument or whatever. I actually want to discuss the ideas. They interest me. I'm interested in these things. I can't help it.
You're a minority in that aspect, you
Yeah.
know, and that's the unfortunate part. You know,
Mhm.
that's really the unfortunate part. Like, no matter how much you disagree with a person, you're willing to at least sit down and talk with them.
Yeah,
You
why
know,
not?
and we all display some sense of snark or
Yeah, oh
whatnot.
hell
But
yeah.
yeah, you know what I mean. Like, and it
Mhm.
all depends on the person we're talking to because sometimes, you know, for instance, I was looking at your vegan gains like debate thing, and I understand where your snark was coming from with that because like he was making a lot of snarky and
Listen, Eric, some
remarks.
people need to be spoken to like they're fucking 3 years old because that's how they behave. I don't deal well with people who have temper tantrums. If that's how you're gonna come at me, you will be treated like a child. And
Mhm.
that shit is so demeaning when like a girl is talking to you like you're a fucking baby. I literally said to him, "Wait, George, why are you so angry?" He was getting so hyper. And it was like,
Yeah.
dude, this is what I'm trying to talk to you about. Like, you're just trying to come in here and like strong arm people into being a vegan or whatever, or see things the way
That's
you
his
see
thing
them.
though, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm not excusing. He usually gets like that with reasons, right? Like usually he gets like very uh emotional and uh kind of mean towards them in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the it's that it's that domination shit, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you
Yeah.
can't play that game with me. You're not gonna come here and dominate me. I don't fall for this shit. But a lot of people do. They're like, they take that like aggressive tone and the raising of the voice, and they get submissive in presence of that. And I'm like, oh, this is how we're gonna play this game, are we? Come at me with your aggressive tone. I'm gonna talk to you like you're an infant. Let's see how that works out for you. You're gonna look like a moron, but you asked for it.
Yeah, it
Like,
is what it is. It is what
sorry.
it is.
Sorry.
Yeah, and I play that same game when Instagram or YouTube or anywhere where I'm talking to people. I mean, it usually happens with like the super strong feminists and stuff because like they'll come to the table and say, you know, you're a man, so you can't have an opinion on it.
Ugh.
And I'm like, why does me being a man have anything to do with this? You know, and then it's funny because like, you know, a lot of people look at the comments I do and there will be a woman that agrees with me that will come and say like, hey, I'm a woman and I agree with him. So
Mm-hmm.
what are you going to say then? And then of course they use the whole you have internalized misogyny type thing.
You know what I
And
say?
I'm
I
like,
say I'm happy with my internalized misogyny. You know what? I am cool wanting to make my husband or boyfriend a sandwich. All right? Sorry that's a problem for you. I like
yeah,
being in the
yeah.
kitchen. I like doing feminine things. I like painting my nails. I guess I
Like
have
yeah, it's
internalized
cool.
misogyny. I
It's
guess.
based on your happiness. It's based on what you like, what you enjoy as a person.
Yeah.
And a lot of people they have an issue with that. They want again they want people to
Conform to them.
yeah, conform to their utopic vision of the world. And no
Mm-hmm.
matter how horrible it is, no matter what type of result comes from that, they want them to form their whole. They want everyone to conform to that. So that's what I have an issue with, and that's why I constantly have to battle. I mean, just recently, like with the whole like abortion debate, um, and what we were talking about earlier about having more efficient arguments, like not going into like all these fallacies and talking past one another and saying that one person is evil. I did a post about a bad argument. You know, I covered something very basic, ad hominem, and it happened to be against. It was a what? It was a pro-choicer that said something that was an ad hominem, and immediately many people thought I was a pro-lifer because I disagreed with the argument. I didn't disagree with the conclusion. I just disagreed with the argument, like how you form the argument. You know,
Mm-hmm.
because that matters. It really does
It
matter, and
does.
that's how you have a more efficient debate, a more efficient
But if
discussion.
you want fuel efficient travel, my friend, you need to be a fuel efficient vehicle, and most people are running like shit. That's it. And I hate to be so negative and pessimistic about it, but honestly, it's the same pattern you see. There's this politics server that I frequent. It has several. I should probably give that to you. We should go in
Yeah,
sometime
please do.
together, and then we can talk about it after, because they're always discussing political issues. The abortion thing's been a hot thing. I just like hearing people argue. You know what I
Me
mean?
too.
It's
Yeah.
a lot of younger people, I think. And I chalk it up to like these people are failing to actually deal with their emotions. So this is the arena that they're coming to just
To
exercise that
express that.
energy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I listen to them talk, and I feel like even though it's difficult, even though it can be such a fucking mess sometimes, there are social skills being gained in that setting, right? Because there is moderation, and there are people who say, "Hey, let this person finish," or "Hey, let's just keep this together. Don't call each other names, whatever." It gets like that. And
Mhm.
that having a little bit of that authority and a little bit of that reminder to get it together so you can have the conversation is really helpful. So it's good to see that a little bit. It's a fun place to go. I like to listen to stuff there. And
Yeah, yeah, I'll go definitely. And I
yeah.
remember you told one of your most recent podcasts. I forgot which one it was,
Hmm.
but you were talking about how you actually like when you see guys go back and forth, but then they could be cool and still have a discussion, and even if they insult one another and call one another
Dude,
names. Yeah.
Let me tell you, one of the guys explained himself 3 times. I can't remember what it was he was talking about. And this other guy just kept fucking coming back at him with the same dumb shit because he didn't understand. And he just goes, you know what, man? Fuck you. I'm going to get some tacos. You're not even listening to me. And he just bounced.
Tacos.
Yeah, he was just so frustrated, and I thought it was so cute. And he was like, fuck you, man. I'm gonna go get tacos. You're not even listening to me. I've explained myself 3 times, and I'm like, this is so cute. Like, it's good to see that, you know? It's good to see, like, the organic moments of levity, you know, where everybody's just frustrated and everybody's just trying to get their point out, and, like, you're over talking, there's interruption, but, like, there are these moments of just success and just nice human connection that are kind of fun to witness to. You
Yeah,
know?
of course. And I think there's a actual bigger issue there, and this involves like my experiences in STEM and talking about politics with scientists and things of that nature, and or just people on the outside. Period. I've noticed that men in groups and women in groups talk a lot differently to
Mm-hmm.
one another.
Mm-hmm.
So when women come into the arena with men, it seems like something totally left field, and they're kind of taken aback by it. They're like, "Oh my gosh, like this is crazy! Like, are they doing this because I'm a woman?" Like type thing.
Oh,
And then
no.
when women get into the field with women, or when men get into the field with women, they're just like, "Oh, they're talking about like their emotional intelligence is really high. They're talking about this stuff, but I'm not ready for that."
Yeah.
So I think the bigger issue here is like kind of getting people to sort of get into different bubbles. Like I think
Mm-hmm.
more women should talk with more.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
I
And
pop in
more men
there
should talk with more women.
every once in a while, you know? It's good to pop in. It's a little bit nerve-wracking because it's very easy to get dogpiled and you're like, I don't know what any of you are saying, and that's just really freaking me out right now, so one at a time. Because the other thing about guys on the internet, there's not many girls who are lurking around listening to men talk. There's like a few of us, right? So when we actually get into the voice chat, they have just this fucking either a really stupid, dumb reaction, and they're going to start pulling out stuff. Like you've seen my avatar, right? The girl eating the lollipop. And you know how these guys are all about degeneracy. What kind of message do you think you're sending people with that avatar, young lady? And I'm like, all right, anime icon. Let's talk about what kind of message we're sending to the. You get the fuck out of here with your bullshit, man. Giving me a shit about my avatar. Look, I'm not gonna bitch about your gay faggot anime icon, so don't bitch about my avatar, okay? Not even relevant. Is that relevant?
Yeah.
Is that gonna tell you something about me? Maybe something very little, but
Yeah, it seems like people pick on the things that I don't know that they're not
superficial,
used
stupid
to.
shit.
Yeah,
They don't
yeah,
know you well enough, so they're
yeah,
going to judge you or talk shit about the things they first see, right? Like the image. Fuck
yeah,
your image,
yeah.
dude. I don't
And
care
it's
about your
easy to
image.
attack that too. It's really easy to come across and to attack this person has this image
Yeah.
instead of attacking an argument. Again, Thomas Sowell
Mm-hmm.
talks about in this book, he talks about arguments that aren't arguments, and that's one of them. Like people will attack how you look or how you present yourself, or say that something is too simple or something is too complex, but won't go further into why it's complex.
Mm-hmm.
These are arguments without arguments, and that's what people do to easily escape the discussion at hand.
You're gonna tell me what, but what about why? Are you sure you've thought about this? The minute you ask people to explain what they mean, if they start tripping, you know they didn't think this
Hmm.
shit through. Oh,
Yep.
why are you wasting my time? You're just over here trying to like throw some shit at. You just want to fling shit at other monkeys.
Hmm.
Dude, we're not that far from the cave, okay? We're still fucking flinging shit at each other. We're just doing it in a digital form now. We have the internet. We're monkeys that can use smartphones. You know, like.
Yeah. It's frustrating. It's really frustrating. But I think generally we're all getting better, happening a lot more versus in the past. Like
Yeah.
it was like a big offense whenever someone who disagreed with you said something. And of course, there are still some people. I see a lot with celebrities. Like they get into a certain scenario where someone disagrees with them, and it's just like, oh, this is happening because I'm a minority, or this is happening because I'm a woman, or whatever the case may be. And it's like, no, it's because, your ideas are bad. It's kind of like with the whole Captain Marvel thing. Did you hear about?
No, please tell me about it.
Well, basically, Captain Marvel came out, and I think her name is Brie Larson,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
main character.
Mm-hmm.
She started making comments about how, oh, like, you don't like this movie. This movie isn't for old white. She said something like old white men or something like that.
Oh,
Really?
no.
Yeah, I was like, are you serious? Like, you're just going to alienate all those people and stuff just because they have a certain opinion about the
Yeah.
movie? Like, no, like you could have a horrible performance in the movie.
Yeah.
That's the reason. Or maybe the story sucks. Like, that's the reason. Like, there are multiple reasons why a movie does good
People
and
just
doesn't
don't want
do
to expect or do not want to accept that they suck sometimes or something
good.
didn't
Yeah.
turn out as good as they thought it would. Sorry you worked your ass off. You tried your best. That should be good enough for you. That doesn't mean everybody is going to respond the way you expect them to.
Exactly. And I mean, yeah, I watched a debate, or not debate, a boxing match last night where someone expected this kind of overweight looking Mexican guy to lose
Yeah.
versus a very popular boxer, and
Mm.
he almost knocked him out, and he won. He's the first Mexican heavyweight champion of the world, and like, like, you could come up with all the excuses in the world, but sometimes things just happen. And that's what it is with movies and stuff. Like, for instance, Wonder Woman did a lot better than Captain, and one had a female director, one had a male director, but they both had female
Leads.
leads. So, I mean, what are you going to say there? You're going to say that people were hating on Captain Marvel because she was a woman, but they didn't hate on Wonder Woman? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it just blows my mind the type of excuses that comes out of people
Yeah.
because the world isn't the way they want it to be.
No.
Yeah,
And that's what we're seeing, right? Any of the clashes that we're seeing between people who cannot reconcile their emotions with reality.
yeah, yeah,
It all comes
and
down to that emotional intelligence shit every time, dude. Like communication, emotional intelligence. And those
scientific
things,
rigor.
yeah, yeah. You need to
Scientific,
be.
because I think everyone needs to learn, well, not just scientific rigor, but like critical thinking skills,
Yeah.
like to be able to form an argument, to be able to understand fallacies and everything. But the scientific rigor comes from investigation, forming a hypothesis, um, you know, conducting an experiment, analyzing the data experiment, coming up with the results, trying to figure out if the results were skewed in some way because of a certain way you did that experiment.
Yeah.
And this could include like doing research for a certain topic. And like, scientific principles are very, very, very important and
Mm-hmm.
very helpful when it comes to anything that you do.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I think, like you said, emotional intelligence is very important, but also critical thinking and scientific rigor.
The end goal with science is also truth. And that's a really
Yeah,
important thing. You have to be somebody who's interested in seeking the truth.
yeah.
People
I
who
mean,
aren't, I think that's obvious who those people are, right?
yeah, yeah. But like, do you have anything that you wish, or do you have any issue with science and how it's communicated? For it's like,
Me personally, no. The thing that I don't like in general is the idea of dumbing down.
mhm,
I don't want to have to dumb myself down to talk to anybody. Like, I understand there's an aspect of getting to a wider crowd, but I'm of the belief that people need to be incentivized in some way to up their game. Like you gotta spend some time dabbling in some intellectual stuff. You need to develop the kinds of observational skills and the ability to process information in a way that is going to align with the facts as much as possible. I don't particularly have a problem with science myself. If I don't understand something, I'll look it up, I'll read about it, because I like the complex aspects of science. I love biology. That's my favorite
mhm.
science. It's my love.
Yeah.
You
Don't
know
you
I
love
love
neurology
I
too,
love
or
neuroscience.
neuroscience? Yeah.
Yeah, I love the brain. I love psychology. These are very deep interests because I want to know how I work. You know what I mean? I want to understand these things. I remember I had this fantasy. I was like, I'm going to be a biohacker. I'm going to learn everything there is to learn about the brain, and then I'm going to trick my own brain into behaving how I want it to behave. Obviously, it doesn't work like that, but that was my whole thing for a while, right? I don't know how to get that balance, to move those scales towards getting people to just be better. But I guess there's a glimmer of optimism because IQ is something that increases over time. It's just there's always gonna be differences among groups and populations, and that's cool. But as long as people are getting better with the more information that's available, that's all you can hope for. Hopefully people will get better at discerning, because dude, like, the internet, there's so much shit on the internet. Some dummy could take some scientific article or paper, condense it, use a few big words and terminology that would be esoteric to the general public, and trick another dummy who's dumber than that dummy that what they're saying is correct and accurate. When in fact,
that's why I do what I do.
Exactly.
That's why I do what I do, because I mean, you have people Earth movement, but there's also this free energy movement who thinks that free energy has been like discovered but is being kept secret by by the government. And that if you know the scientific principles that you could derive free energy. But all energy requires work, for instance. So I mean, you can't create energy out of nothing. And a lot of people get this from Nikola Tesla. He was a brilliant guy, but like, I'm working on this big article where I'm debunking a lot of stuff from him, because like, a lot of people think, for instance, he was the first to come up with alternating current. He wasn't. A lot of people think that he came up with the idea of free energy and stuff, but he didn't. He thought like you could somehow like grab the roots of the ground and use the electromagnetic field of the earth to get energy. And I mean, we know that today not to be true. I mean, because we use generators, we use tons of other things to get energy. So like, this free energy movement, they're using classical mechanics, which is anything before Einstein, and that's how they're getting to their conclusions. And then you also have all of these, Deepak Chopra's, the quantum healing people, they use quantum mechanic language, but to explain.
Oh my god, like Deepak
things.
Chopra, quantum consciousness. Listen, dude, never ever listen to a man who wears rhinestone glasses if he says the word quantum, okay? That is a fucking cardinal rule. You got rhinestones on your glasses and the word quantum is coming out of your fucking mouth. We are on the wrong foot already, my friend.
yeah, it's tough. Book by not him. Well, it is co-authored by him. But hold on, let me try to find it real quick.
Look at that bookshelf. Ah, yeah. So,
I found it.
You find that book, and then I want to ask you. I want you to tell me what your educational goals are, what you're doing in school right now, how you're applying that. Tell me about you. I know we've talked about this, but I want to know. I want to know again. I need you to remind me.
Definitely. Okay, so this book is called War of the Worldviews, Science for Spirituality. And basically, I'm sure you've seen the clip before, but Sam Harris was talking to Deepak Chopra.
Yes, I've seen it.
And he was talking about like quantum stuff, and Michael Shermer, I think he was there too. And then someone in the audience like asked Deepak Chopra a question.
Oh, he's the one who worked with Stephen Hawking, right?
Yeah, he's the one who worked and has books with Stephen Hawking, and he decided to get with Deepak Chopra and make this book where they're having an argument, kind of like that Islam book by Sam Harris and Majid. Yeah. It's the same concept, same thing. They're just having a dialogue and having multiple arguments, and that's what that book is about. It's a really good book. Yeah. But yeah, that's often what I do on the internet. I try to debunk all those things, and there's a lot of things to talk about.
I've seen your comments. You're very professional, very well written.
Thank you.
You're a very smart man.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I appreciate you, motherfucker. I appreciate you. So tell me what you're doing in school now. Tell me your whole thing.
So like my biggest obstacle in school, and this is the reason why I haven't graduated yet, is like the money aspect. So I started back in school like 3 years ago, maybe. And I had to like not do certain semesters and to back out or drop classes due to having to work so much. Like
Mm-hmm.
I would work and then
You'd burn
I
out.
couldn't keep up. Yeah, basically, and I couldn't keep up with the stuff, so I had to drop classes. Sometimes I failed a class or I messed up my GPA or whatever the case may be. And
Mm-hmm.
then of course they have like the academic forgiveness thing, but right now I'm going across the core classes. I'm kind of repairing my GPA, but money has been a thing that's been always obstacle for me. So right
Mm-hmm.
now I'm trying to transfer from having a regular 9 to 5 job to monetizing my Instagram, my YouTube, my blog, and everything from there. Because if I could do that, I could fully focus on school. I don't have to worry about commuting 40 minutes back and forth.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
have to, I don't have to worry about going to work and then going straight to the library and then going, all this other stuff. That's always been an issue. So like I've been taking like 2 classes here, or I'll take 4 classes, but I have to drop one or two.
Mm.
And so last semester I only took 2 classes, but that's what I'm doing now. I'm just repairing my GPA and gradually taking classes and starting to monetize my social media so I could, go hard with school. Like I want to have a full 4 or 5 class schedule every
So what you
semester.
gotta
Like that's
do when we stop is make sure you give me links to all your stuff, and I'll make sure I throw it in the description. What's your
okay.
major? What are your interests?
So my major is physics, minor mathematics. I wanted to do a double major in physics and mathematics because it will only take me maybe a year or so extra in order to get that mathematics major too. So I'm still thinking about that. But yeah, so that's what I'm doing. I've done internships categorizing black hole, other works. I'm not doing any internships this summer. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
doing summer classes. I'm mostly saving money in order to um, use for classes in the
Hmm.
fall semester.
Kick
Yeah,
ass, dude.
so
That's awesome.
yeah. Um, and yeah, my interests are just, I love reading and keeping up with science news and debunking uh, the most popular bad ideas there are about physics, about things relating to science, and now even economics, and
Mm-hmm.
I love doing that. And um, that's what I mostly do, and it's like I have fun too. I go hiking. I love
Yeah.
uh, traveling a little bit, but being a broke college student, it's kind of hard to
I
travel
know.
a lot. You know what I mean? So yeah,
So, what do you want to do career-wise?
I want to be a researcher. I want to be
Oh,
a
right, yeah.
theoretical,
Did you say you
and
want to
I
be a
want
theoretical physicist?
yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my god, I can't wait to interview you when you're a big time theoretical physicist. We're gonna have so much fun.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah. So mathematical physics work and also maybe biophysics
Oh,
because
you're
I'm really
cutting out
into
a little bit.
longevity.
Here's what you need to do right
Oh,
now, hit Control R
okay.
on your laptop, and it'll refresh you, and then you'll enter the call again, and it'll be clear.
Okay.
Oh no! Not Amy Face! He had to restart. So you can just. Ah! Is he back? I can see my stupid face right now. Look at that. Eric. And there you are. Hey.
Yes. Hey, my bad.
It's all
Can you
good.
hear me good now?
Yes, sure can.
Okay, cool. So yeah, yeah, I want to get into different areas. I even want to get into AI research and stuff from a
Oh,
physics
very cool.
aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I think that's a big field, and it's very important to kind of, watch the progression of that and to be careful with that because that could go the wrong way very
Oh
easily.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, I want to get into that, but mostly theoretical physics stuff. Yeah. So that's my goal. And then of course I want to write tons of books. I want to have discussions on a big stage and popularize like physics, and to show people like it's okay to be a physicist and not think in one way. Like,
Yeah.
not, because a lot of the scientists that are public out now, they're usually extremely left. They're, all about the identity politics stuff. And I'm not about that, like, at
Yeah.
all. I mean, of course I have left-leaning views when it comes here and there, but I don't submit to the whole identity politics narrative, the victimization thing, the coddling. I don't like that, and I talk about that very often. And because of that, people listen to me, and sadly, more than uh, a white physicist or whatever, because I'm black. They're like, oh well, let me hear what you have to say, because you're black, and I can't attack you for being black. It's just,
It's so
yeah, I know,
tacky,
I hate
dude.
that.
I can't
Yeah, I
handle
hate
that.
that.
But at the same time, take advantage then. If that's how
Oh, I
people,
do.
yeah, good for you. Like,
I do.
as much as it's kind of a pain in the ass, like when I hear that from you, it makes me like cringe on the inside a little bit that somebody would say, oh, or somebody would even give off that impression like, oh, he's black. What he's saying is more legitimate because he's black and he's been oppressed. And all that other shit that's back there.
Yeah.
Oh, slavery. Oh, this. Oh, that.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't ever want to listen to you because I pitied your past, Eric? Like,
or pity something that you had nothing to do with, or I had
yeah,
nothing to do with. I
really
wasn't even
though.
born when slavery happened, or
Yeah.
any of this. So yeah, I mean, so yeah, I take advantage of that. Like, a lot of people invite me to like these intersectionality type things, and I go there like as a secret spy in a way, and I'm like, I wonder what they're gonna say here, and I
Yeah.
record certain things or screenshot certain things and send it to my friends who aren't like about that, and they roll their eyes about it. But yeah, I definitely take advantage of that, so I
Yeah.
could talk about it more, and I
Hmm.
could raise awareness that it's not a cool thing to accept identity politics, or to be racist against white people, or to be racist against anyone, because I mean that's the popular thing to do now, is to be racist against white people based off of things that they didn't do,
Yeah.
or history.
But you know how
And there was
they are connecting themselves to the past that they didn't live? They are
mm,
connecting white people now to a past that they didn't commit to either. So that the same logic that they're actually operating under is being projected onto white people. And like, yo, we're all just trying to move along and deal with this crazy shit. I don't know why
yeah.
people are so intent on holding on to the past. Like, what a weight to carry. No wonder you're such a resentful cunt. Like, you're sitting here drumming up. Really, though. Like, what? How else are you supposed to feel but resentful if you're just going to keep reinforcing the negative emotions that you think occurred? I'm sorry, but like, black people who went through slavery were fucking tough, dude. Like,
Yeah.
you know how much shit they put up with? I find it so offensive to shit on your ancestry and use their plight as some kind of fucking political leverage to get shit that you want. This is how you're respecting your ancestors who actually went through trials and tribulations and such difficult times for you to now enjoy the benefits of living in a free country.
Tell it, Amy. Say it louder for the people in
Hell
the
yeah,
back.
you know how it is, girl.
You know how it is.
Don't you find that
Yeah.
so sad? Like, it's so good to see, like, I really don't want to. I hate bringing the black thing up again and again, but like, I just love to see black men and women who don't even mention the blackness. Hey, I'm
Yeah.
a person. I'm working in the system. I'm working hard. These are the results and consequences of working hard. I did not do
Period.
this and get this because I'm black. And I think it's really unfortunate that they're lowering standards to accommodate people who just don't have the intellect to participate in certain things, like,
Yeah,
I'm
or
sorry.
have the confidence. I mean, to me, when I look at what can be done, what can be achieved, I look at people. I don't care if you're a woman. I might look at a woman and say, you know what, I could do that too if I work hard enough and I care
Yo,
enough about that.
MLK, let's judge everybody by the content of their character. What about that? What about that? Like, you're not gonna follow MLK? What another role model about this
No,
issue?
they cherry
He's an
pick.
Uncle Tom, right? He's a fucking
Yeah,
Uncle Tom. Can you believe black people call each other house niggers? because they
Oh
don't
yeah, I've
agree.
been called that. I've been called that.
Oh, Eric,
I've been called.
no!
I get called that like once a month at least.
Oh,
At least.
that pains
It's
my
so funny.
soul because you're like such
No,
a reasonable, intelligent person, and that pisses
it's
me off.
hilarious. It's
I'm
hilarious
offended
because
for you.
yeah, and then like non-white people, they'll say something to the effect of, "You're a disgrace to your people," or something to that. I'm like, what? Like, first of all, I'm a person. I'm not a representation of my group. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
What
or any,
group?
yeah,
Why are you
like,
putting me in the black group? We get it.
yeah,
I'm black. I'm in the black group by fucking default. Okay, who
yeah.
cares about that? I didn't earn this. I didn't make this. I didn't do this. It just was what I am. Like, so
Yeah, like, are you gonna put me in the brown eye group too, or the you know,
just
I don't
stupid
know. Like,
shit that does not matter. People
it,
need to, that's a failure of their emotional processing again because they're funneling it through all this stupid shit that doesn't matter.
yeah, exactly, and it just keeps coming up and up over and over, and the only way that it's going to go away is if more people are exposed to people like you who are
Aw, I
able
love
to
you.
have a conversation. No, it's true. Like, you bring it, because this is the reason why I think it's important for me, even though, as a black person or whatever, to come out about some of these
Yeah,
things. Like,
yeah.
it's important for you to come out, like, as a woman, about like a lot of the popular myths that feminism brings up.
Yeah.
Like, it's just super important for people, because they'll listen to you more than the other person, because there's more
Oh,
to
Eric,
attack
you'd
from
think,
everyone
okay,
else.
but I like people have a problem with my attitude. I'm like a really in your face. I'm not afraid to say what I want to say directly. Words don't have any kind of stranglehold on me where I don't use them. I dropped an N bomb at you earlier, and what happened? You laughed it off, and that's a
Hmm.
beautiful
Yeah,
reaction. But other
yeah,
people will say I'm racist for that. I'm like, dude,
yeah, and
look,
that's
this
BS.
is a conversation between fairly intelligent people where I can say that to my friend and he understands, oh man, she's
Yeah,
not like connecting this to all the negative connotations of it. She's just being
yeah.
endearing
I
and I'm
mean,
trying to be black.
context matters. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's context matters, one, and then two, like, I'm from the Bay Area, Oakland, San Francisco, like that area.
Hmm.
So, like, over there, I mean, you hear Filipinos say the N word, you hear white people, whatever, and it's
Hmm.
like a common thing. So, you know, it's not nearly as bad as like a lot of people on the internet like to
Hmm.
make it be. And of course, there's this movement. It's like, oh, if you allow that, then you're, not really black or something like that. But I just don't believe in that. Like, you can't have a monopoly over words just
Yeah.
because they offend you. Like, no race has a monopoly over words. And I mean, that goes for the stupid cultural appropriation movement thing. I mean, because I tell people all the time, oh, okay, well, if you're not for cultural appropriation, like, get off social media, because social media didn't start with a black person. It
That
didn't start
second word,
with this.
it's cultural appreciation, not cultural appropriation. Dude, if people like I've seen white girls wearing Indian dresses, saris, I've seen black girls wearing this stuff. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful to see somebody who
Hmm.
doesn't participate in your culture or whatever where that is them participating in your culture. They're appreciating something about your culture that's foreign, it's different, they want to try something new. Like,
Hmm.
these are things to encourage. Like, shit was getting so ridiculous where girls were like, um hoop earrings are a Spanish girl thing, don't be appropriating hoop earrings. And I'm like, who the fuck like, how nitpicky do you have to get that you're crying over fucking earrings? This is so petty.
I think it's because I noticed that a lot of this comes from very, like, affluent and well-off
They're
people.
just
Like, they could
bored,
play.
they have nothing
Yeah, they're
else.
bored. They're really bored. They don't have anything. They never faced actual, like,
Adversity.
adversity. So
Mm-hmm.
they make up all of these things in order to feel like they're important to the world,
Yeah.
instead of, like, addressing actual issues, addressing actual problems. They come up with all these problems that are non-problems.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I attribute to the most of the social justice warrior movement. It's just a lot of I mean, because like for instance, with colleges and how there are a lot of like whiny people in college, like a lot of those people are from very well off families. That's
Mm-hmm.
the reason why they're in college in the first place. Usually, I mean, like I'm in college and I didn't come from a well off family, but like a lot of people are. And the fact that they're so whiny and they make a big deal out of everything, I think that's them trying to make sense of the world based off their ignorance, and then also trying to project their sense of feeling unimportant, in a way. It's so weird. It's
So we
very
gotta
odd.
keep. It is our responsibility. Okay, I'm making this
Okay.
our thing
You
to
making this our thing?
to
You're placing
yeah,
you're
yeah.
placing your female privilege onto
Yeah, I
me?
am. Of infusing good conduct into the culture in whatever way that we can. Like I
Okay.
know it
Yeah.
sounds a little bit big-headed to say like I think there's some behaviors that I have that are positive and that are going to contribute to cohesion as opposed to division. I think I can say that confidently now. If I'm willing to talk to people who have said just the most horrendous shit to me and come to an understanding, I think that says a lot more than it doesn't. And I think that those are the kinds of behaviors that need to be put out there. People need to have
Yeah.
good examples of behavior. And unfortunately, not only do we gravitate to more negative people and people who just want to start drama, and, it's all about the salacious headline, right? It's
Yeah.
all about who
True.
has the most salacious headline, the most clickbait titles on their videos, because it's about views. And, like, it's all become so synthetic because it's about the metrics and the numbers. And that's the incorrect way to look at it. I was listening to Dan Carlin the other day, and I've often said this is it's more than just about how many people listen to your podcast. It's about who are the people who are listening to your podcast? What is the quality of your audience? And what is the quality of person that you're attracting and that you want to attract? You know what I mean? The message you're putting out, the vision you have, these things are really important. Your conduct, your behavior is important. And I also think how people behave anonymously says a lot more about them. I never want to be in the position where I'm hiding. I'm always going to say whatever is on my mind, and I just feel like I'm not afraid to have to be wrong and to have that shit curated by others. I'm a student in the world forever. In some ways I can be a teacher, but I'm mainly a student. I want to learn. I want to absorb. I am under no impression that I think perfectly, you know?
Yeah.
And it's important.
Yeah.
The culture needs a little bit of good behavior. We need encouragement of good behavior in the culture because nothing is going to change anything more than what's being disseminated into the culture. That's
Yeah.
it at the end of the day.
But do you think that the culture will improve if people continue to be anonymous, or do you think that people have to have their identities exposed? Because you know how some social media platforms, for instance, are trying their best to like stop the whole anonymity thing. Like they're
Yeah.
they're trying to make everyone like come out with their identities, and they think that will improve. Do you think that's the right way to go, or do you think that naturally people will become better no matter if they're anonymous or not?
I think that as long as you give people the ability to hide, they're going to be assholes because it prevents them from having to look internally and fix those things when they have that external outlet. I personally am against the idea of anonymity. I think it's cowardly. I think it's ridiculous. I think it contributes to the accountability problem that we have, and that is so prevalent. People do not hold themselves accountable to the things that they say. Dude, there are recordings of people saying insane shit. They'll be asked about it and then they'll right out deny it. And I'm like, there's video evidence of you saying this. How are you
Yeah, just
now?
admit to it.
Yeah,
Like
how
like
are you
it's
telling
okay.
me? How are you now
Yeah,
telling
I
me that
mean,
you didn't
for
say
instance,
it?
regardless of what people think about like someone like, I don't, let me just name someone random, like Ben Shapiro, for
Mm-hmm,
instance.
mm-hmm.
Like regardless of what people think about him, what I really like about him is his intellectual honesty. Like he has a whole like article
Well,
of like,
except on the religious thing, right?
oh yeah. But yeah, that's true. But he has a whole article about the things that he said that's stupid. Like like obviously they're just insulting, bad arguments, whatever. And he updates this list like yearly, and he'll go across and he'll say this in person when
Yeah.
he's asked certain things. Like he'll say, yeah, I said that and I was stupid, I don't agree with that anymore, or my views have changed here.
He
And
did
he's
that
been
recently.
really,
You see his BBC
really.
interview? He did a BBC interview recently, and he behaved so badly, and it was just such an embarrassing
Oh,
thing.
I heard about that. I heard about that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was really embarrassing, but I mean, he came out on Twitter and he kind of apologized for it later, but I always feel like I don't think a Twitter apology is sufficient. I think you should actually like take a moment and just,
Hmm.
you're on YouTube, make a quick video in your podcast. Maybe you did it and I missed it. I just know the initial apology occurred
Yeah,
on
yeah,
Facebook.
yeah. I guess, Twitter in a way is the way to quickly get out something that you
Yeah,
need to get
yeah.
out. But yeah, maybe he has talked about it in his podcast. But I remember like every time when he would be confronted about something, be it at one of his question and answering sessions or through his or just writing articles, like he admits to being wrong,
Yeah.
and I like that. I actually pay attention to that, and although I don't agree with his religious stuff, or I don't agree with a lot of stuff that he says, I listen to him very often
Yeah, I
so
like
I could
Shapiro
hear.
too. He's very sharp.
Yeah, yeah, he is very sharp. He provides decent, at least decent arguments on the other side when it comes to things. So that's the reason why I like him,
Mhm.
and he's open for dialogue. Like he's open to talk about. I think Sam Harris kind of went too easy on him
Mhm.
in their debate. Like when I was watching, I was very displeased with it. I was like, there are so many things Sam could have got onto him about, but he was being like way too friendly, because obviously they're friends now, and then they talk a lot, and I'm sure they talked
But you know what's
beforehand
difficult
and
too
stuff.
is the do you remember the conversation that Sam Harris had with Jordan Peterson and how difficult it was for them to talk about truth? And it's because okay, they are in totally separate arenas, you know?
Mhm.
Peterson is all about subjective, metaphysical. Any beliefs that somebody has about metaphysics are generally incredibly subjective. It's their interpretation of the phantasmagoria of like just thought processes, right? Whereas
Yeah,
Sam Harris, he's unique in his field because not only is he proficient with philosophy, he's very good at thinking things through. The way he kind of like he like pulls apart an engine and then fixes it, and that his explanation is like every piece and component and putting that together, and it's based on objective facts. Like his everything he talks about is rooted primarily, or the bedrock is science, the scientific method. You can tell by how he analyzes information, explains it. So when you're talking to each other from two different arenas, you are just going to talk past each other. You're not going to
yeah.
come to an understanding.
But not just that, but you have to define terms. You have to say, okay, when you're talking about truth, like, and Jordan Peterson kind of tried this, but I mean, he didn't do it in a good way. You have to say, okay, like when we're talking about truth, where we're gonna go with that,
Mm-hmm.
or like we have to lay the objective facts on the table before we go anywhere. Or what I do with like a lot of people who are into identity politics, I lay out on the table that I do not subscribe to the whole racism equals prejudice plus power, or
Yeah.
or all this other stuff. I'm like, no, I'm talking about the dictionary definitions of things. Now let's have a conversation,
Mm-hmm.
because you're not going to come to me and talk all these like these intersectionality terms about racism, sexism, whatever, and then
Distractions, Eric.
yeah, yeah,
Distractions.
yeah, because and you have to do that, or else they will do that in order to prove their point. And
Mm-hmm.
yes, by their in the way they're doing it, yeah, of course they're going to be right, because a lot of these things aren't falsifiable, and you have to get to a point where you can falsify these things. So if you can't falsify it, you can't really have a discussion and reach an objective like solution based on that discussion, because you're
Mm-hmm.
you're just going to keep going around and saying things. And that's the big part, for instance, why I have uh, issues with the identity politics thing on both sides, extreme right and extreme left. Like I talk to a lot of people from the extreme right. A lot of their stuff isn't falsifiable. Extreme left too. They're just not falsifiable. So you will say something,
Mm-hmm.
they'll say, but this could explain this, and then it's like circular reasoning in a way. Like there's no way you could possibly falsify it. And that's the reason why defining terms at the start matters the most.
So my friends call these template warriors, people who just repeat the same things over and over again, like, just the soundbite, right? Just the soundbite of the view, like, how you were saying earlier, they'd be like, this is wrong. They'll just say this is wrong. They will employ that as an argument, but they're not telling you why or how it's wrong.
An
So
argument without an argument. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the overall issue, and that's the reason why, like you said in the beginning, learning how to argue effectively
Mm-hmm.
matters, really does, and knowing that you have to come to the table with a constructive view of the world, and you can't just be like, I feel this, I feel that, I feel that, or that. Like, no, you have to come with an actual argument, and
Mm-hmm.
it has to be sound. And Sam Harris is really good at that. I love the fact that he's able to do that. I just wish
Yeah.
he was a lot harder on Ben Shapiro when they were having their debate
Yeah,
about it.
so one thing that like again, I'm just going to keep harping on this emotional equality thing or emotional intelligence thing, right? Is because you notice when Sam Harris comes to a debate or an argument, he has unshakable equanimity like 99% of the time. He's very measured and reasonable, and his emotions don't pollute the conversation. As soon as there's emotional pollution, you start getting your back up against the wall too, because this is how it works with human beings. We can see each other react. When you see someone's facial expressions move, your brain recognizes that. There's a place in our
Yeah,
brain meant to recognize what the other person is feeling or doing, and much of that is expressed through our facial expressions. Now, if one person's polluting that conversation, that pollution is going to have an effect on the overall conversation no matter how hard the other person tries. Eventually, Sam Harris will have a reaction because the other person is ramping up so much. It always
yeah,
is going to come back to being able to manage your emotional states in the heat of the moment, under pressure, under the difficult task of having your views challenged. Because it is difficult, even though I understand that I shouldn't have an emotional reaction. I'm human, right? If someone's going to
yeah.
say something directly to me that is going to kind of be against something that I believe in truly, like human rights, or for example, right? If some Islamic person was telling me it's cool to throw gays off a building, I'm going to have a hard time for a moment. But
Mhm.
then I'm gonna have to like bring myself back to baseline and remember like there is a worldview here. There is a mechanism that is developed with them of this software program that's operating and curating all their thoughts. And I have to work with that. I'm not gonna get anywhere with this person if I don't understand them from that point.
Exactly, and that's the reason why when I come to people, and I usually tell them I've had conversations with ethno nationalists. I've had conversations with people who are, you know, who would you would say are outright racist or whatever, or white nationalists, black nationalists, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I've had conversations with these people, and it's because like somewhere along the line they are accurate when it comes to something, and the
Mm-hmm.
reason why they have their worldview is because of some experience that they have.
Mm-hmm.
And somewhere along the line, there's a fundamental disconnect in their thinking. And it's usually the whole correlation equals causation thing. So they'll look at like a white nationalist will look at black people in different nations and the fact
Mm-hmm.
that they have a low IQ on average and say, therefore, we should live separately. You
Mm-hmm.
know, not taking into consideration that there are also a lot of white people on that spectrum that would be down there too, even though on average it's a little bit higher than the black population. And then there are Asian people with even a higher IQ, and then there are Jewish people with even higher IQ or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, but I go and I talk to them to get a better understanding of their arguments and their issues with the world, so I could form an argument in my head for them that's stronger than what they're presenting.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, to break it down, kind of like how you said Sam Harris does, like he breaks apart the engine and the different parts and he puts it back together and then kind of destroys it with his counter argument.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I do. And it's not necessarily just to destroy it, but it's
Steel
to better
manning.
understand.
Steel
Yeah,
manning is
still
such
manning.
a great, it's such a, like, One of my friends told me, like, when you start having a conversation with somebody about something you're going to disagree on for sure, it's always good to start the conversation with the points about it that you do agree on because you're setting it off
Hmm.
on a right and positive foot, right? Look, see, there's things we agree about, and now we can move from here on the things we disagree about, right? And
Yeah.
it makes the conversation go by a lot smoother as well because you're not preoccupied having to explain, like, okay, okay, I agree, I agree. You've already done
Yeah.
that stuff. And then when somebody
Yeah.
explains their side, the steel manning is a courtesy. That's a nice thing to do. That's, hey, I'd like to communicate to you that I'm actually understanding what you're saying. Is this correct? This is how I'm processing it. But just listen to what I'm saying. Am I getting the concept? Yes, cool. Now we can continue with the next point or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what's missing because usually when I come to a disagreement with someone, I have to keep that in mind too. So I don't care if it's about the earth being flat or about climate change. I try to say, okay, I get what you mean by this, and I
Mm-hmm.
understand what you mean by this, but this is where you're going wrong uh, in your argument or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then I go across the board because, like I think Jonathan Haidt talks about this
I
all the
love
time. Like,
him.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he's amazing when it comes to social psychology and
Very.
everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and have you read The Righteous Mind? I think
No,
it's
I've
called.
read the happiness hypothesis. He touches on a little bit of the emotional aspect. You know what I'm saying? Like the how
Yeah.
the elephant is actually what's controlling the rider, which refers to, like,
Oh,
your base needs, and there's obviously cognitive processes occurring that you're not orchestrating. So it's meant to illustrate that dichotomy of like the rider and the elephant. So that's
oh,
cool,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I think he uses that analogy in The Righteous Minds too.
Well,
But
he's written
it's
a
really
paper
good.
about it as well.
Oh yeah.
Before it was a book, it was a paper he co-wrote with two other scientists.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because he has a website based on it, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I love his work because
Mm-hmm.
he's really into that whole like having discourse and academics getting together with a diversity of ideas. And he exposes the fact that, there's a left-leaning bias
Mm-hmm.
in academia and how right-leaning viewpoints aren't really accepted and stuff. And I guess this is the only time that, or this is one of the only times that I agree with anonymity, or I almost said probably
Anonymity.
said anonymity. There we go. Yeah, I'm saying it all wrong,
You
but
so cute.
thank you for that correction. But yeah, so like there are academics who literally their job will be on the line if they say something online that is risque, or if they even talk
Mm-hmm.
to a person that you know academia views as a pariah or something. It's it just blows my mind.
It's
So like
cowardly. It's ridiculous.
it
If you're
is.
if you believe in the fortitude of your ideas, you should be willing to come to bat for them. Stand up for your
Mhm.
fucking ideas. Stand up for what you
Yeah,
believe in. And if you're wrong,
exactly.
change your bloody mind.
Exactly. But there are a lot of academics who have been like kind of pressured to resign because here's the thing in academia, if you get fired by the employer, you don't get like paid
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. So if you resign before the committee says, okay, we don't want you to work for our university anymore,
Mm-hmm.
then you'll still get a check. So that's the reason why a lot of people just resign and they just go about their day, and then they become anonymous and they support people like Godsod. Um, and Godsod on his Twitter, he always puts out like little excerpts from letters about academics who come to him and say like, hey, I support you, but I can't be, you know I'm anonymous, but I do support you, and I want to say that I agree with a lot of what you're saying. And
Mm-hmm.
that's that fact. A lot of them have to do that in order to keep their job because they do have families, they do have stuff. But I do think it's important for some academics to come forth and to actually support them, because
Yeah.
the more that do it, the more popular, the more like comfortable people will get with coming out, and then the less comfortable the higher ups will get at just bending to the will of the students,
Mm-hmm.
which is crazy to me. Like, how
Here's
are you going to
why.
bend to the
I'll
will
tell
of
you
the
what it
student?
is. I think the influence of the crowd is a negative one. I think the larger the crowd gets, the more your lowest common denominator is brought to the forefront because people encourage each other to do very shitty behaviors. And if someone starts a
True.
riot and other people jump on that, like those people are reinforcing that negative shitty behavior. Like these witch hunts of people that go out and try to fuck with people's lives because they think that they're the arbiters of just laying punishment on people who did something they didn't agree with. Look, I am all for facing consequences to things that you've done that are less than favorable in society. Okay, I get it. But we also have to be very reasonable about how we treat people who have fucked up because we all fuck up. Like, this is everybody. Can you imagine? Like, these people, if you said, would you like it if I came to your fucking house with signs and shit and screamed you out and you had to now move states? Like, shit as stupid as remember that lion hunter, that dentist lion hunter? He like shot a lion and he posted a picture on Facebook and fucking people went crazy. They found out his address, okay? And they did such obscene things to the front door and shit. And it's like,
Yeah,
dude,
I'm not cool
okay.
with that.
No, that's not okay. And it's like, same with like a lot of.
Regardless,
Mhm.
regardless of how you feel about, hunting and stuff like that, that's not cool. It's just not.
But
It
look at all
really
these
isn't.
right wing people. Like, I know a lot of people don't like Tucker Carlson. I love him. I think he's great. He provides value to me in like the form of entertainment and just whatever,
Yeah, yeah.
right? People showed up at his house too and threatened his family. Like, what about Gavin McInnes, right? Like, look at all the shit these right wing people are eating. This is the thing that I have a problem with right now is that I get you may not agree with the right, but they have a right to speak and they should not be shouted out and kicked out because they provide balance on issues that the left cannot and the left provides balance on issues the right cannot. There has to
Yeah.
be a gray area in the middle where they're meeting and both sides are just failing to do that.
Failing
And it's because
bad,
the
bad.
extreme sides seem to be pulling more of the people who are close to the center to those extreme sides. Now it's going to start
Hmm.
taking a lot of mental fortitude to not get sucked into that shit because I think people just get fed up and they're like, all right, fine, make something
Yeah,
happen.
yeah, yeah. And one of my right wing friends, he actually put me onto this. Like, did you know that almost every single political hoax, like, someone writing the N word
Or
on some
Jesse
black person's
Smollett.
garage.
You remember
Yeah, or
Jesse?
Jesse Smollett. Yeah, yeah. All of those almost they're left wing incidents, and they're more than 12 of them at
Yeah.
least within the
Mm-hmm.
last 2 years alone, and uh, most of them, if are fake.
Yeah.
And there are no, like, I searched everywhere, or well, not everywhere on the internet, but I searched far and wide for any right wing equivalent to that, and I couldn't even find one story where a right winger did that.
It's
And again,
embarrassing.
yeah, it's embarrassing because like people are really reaching with this whole thing that they're trying to prove a point so bad by faking things, and then the people on their side, they forget about it. Like when it happens, it's just like, oh well, this person's a bad person anyway, so whatever.
Dude, and CNN is just running fucking tickers about Trump all goddamn day. 24 hours drumming up bullshit. It's like, look, there are parts of the guy that are clearly not credible and he's suspicious here and there, but don't call the guy a racist if he's not being a racist, dude.
Exactly.
Like,
Don't call the
you're
guy
ruining it.
racist. Don't call the guy sexist or homophobic, especially homophobic. This is a weird one because he was the first presidential nominee to embrace the LGBT community.
Mm-hmm.
Like he had a flag and was waving it during while he was running. Like Obama didn't do that. Obama embraced the LGBT community much after he already like
Mm-hmm.
won presidency and stuff. And there's even footage of him saying things like that he's not for gay marriage. I think
Oh, really?
and stuff like that. Yeah, yeah. There's footage of him saying that, I believe, and then of course, like he with the drug laws and stuff, like he said he was against that and how he would stop or he would decriminalize certain drugs, but he didn't do that during his presidency at all. So like yeah, but like Trump embraced the LGBT community when he was running, and he just recently said on Twitter how he's going to put pressure on nations that are punishing people for being homosexual and stuff. But nothing from CNN saying like this is a good thing, this needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. It's just complete silence. People are saying, "Oh, someone must have wrote that for him.
Mm-hmm.
Someone is on his Twitter again." It's never. People are never giving him credit for anything, and that's what makes people like kind of on his side in a way. They're just like, "Oh, you're not going to give him credit? Well, I'm going to vote for him instead of the people you want me to vote for because you're
Mm-hmm.
not being honest." And intellectual honesty is a big thing today, and we're seeing more and more people embracing that more than the tribalistic stuff.
I hope so. But even in the
Yeah.
academic circles, things get fucking tribal. I think
Oh,
tribalism
100%.
is something that we're going to have to learn to work with. This is how we survived so long, is by banding into smaller tribes. And I feel
Yeah.
like maybe that's something we need to do on our, like, amongst ourselves. We need to have our own little communities that we're building, and we have some of these healthy behaviors in. Like, I'm all about that now. I've like a few friends that I've met over the internet that I kind of want to keep together. I'm gonna throw you my Discord invite link, by the way, so you can come
Okay,
hang out in there
cool.
and stuff too. But it's good to have people who don't necessarily align with you on everything, who aren't afraid to disagree with you, who you're comfortable with and have built up enough of a rapport with that you can also, throw in a lot of levity and make jokes. Because at the end of the day, like, we're all in this together, dude. We gotta learn.
Exactly.
We gotta learn to make fun of the things that we don't align on. And my experience made me this way. Yours made you that way, and that's cool. Like, it's okay. Uh, we can
Exactly.
be around
And
each other, and it cannot be a problem.
yeah, and it's good to have friends in all places because there's
Yeah.
something that they know or something that they have expertise in that you don't.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the reason why I like having acquaintances and friends from all sides and
Yeah.
areas of the political spectrum is because I could pull something from this person about foreign policy. I could pull
Mm-hmm.
something from this person about psych uh, community of friends with a diversity of viewpoints.
Yeah, that is the
Understand
only diversity in this world that
that
matters, is the
matters.
diversity
Yes,
of ideas. It's
exactly.
so important. And
It is important.
I hope people start to recognize that and get on it. But we've been
Yeah.
talking for 2 hours and 35 minutes. I know you're
Wow.
gonna
Yeah.
have to go shortly, but it's
Definitely.
it's been
Definitely.
really good to talk to you, Eric. We should definitely try and do this again.
Or
Yes.
with neuroscience and having discussions and talking about things and the vast knowledge you have, like I could pull from different areas that I can't pull from someone else. So like I love that, and
Yeah.
you can't have that if you don't have a community of friends with a diversity of viewpoints.
Yeah, that is the
Understand
only diversity in this world that
that
matters, is the
matters.
diversity
Yes,
of ideas. It's
exactly.
so important. And
It is important.
I hope people start to recognize that and get on it. But we've been
Yeah.
talking for 2 hours and 35 minutes. I know you're
Wow.
gonna
Yeah.
have to go shortly, but it's
Definitely.
it's been
Definitely.
really good to talk to you, Eric. We should definitely try and do this again.